First question is, what is your full name?
My name is Franz. My full name is Franz Christopher Maturan Herbana. That's my full name.
Oh, that's awesome. I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever seen the middle name before.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I don't really put it out there because it's kind of a long name. So I just put Franz Herbana. That's what everybody knows me as.
of course, of course. And when and where were you born?
I was born on February 26, 1988 in Davao City, Philippines. And yep, that's where I
Is
was
that
born.
is that where your parents are from too?
Yes. My parents are both from Davao City. And well, my mom was actually south of Davao, and they met when my dad visited her city, I guess.
Mm.
I can't remember what her city's name was, but yeah.
It's all good. And then when did you come to Hawaii?
So my dad actually, so my grandpa actually was born on the Big Island. So he was naturalized as a citizen of the US, and he brought my dad late in his life. My He brought my dad over to Hawaii on Oahu on 1994,
Mm.
and then he brought us over in 1996. So I was about like 7 or 8 around there.
Awesome. Do you know why your family, like other reasons why your grandpa came to Hawaii?
Um, so my grandpa, like, I'm not, I don't really know much about his parents, but like my grandpa always went back and forth from Philippines to Hawaii. Like he visited often and stuff. But
Mm.
he resided, he made a like a permanent move to Hawaii because he just wanted to set his kids up for a
Mm.
better life, I guess, you know?
Right. No, I think that's really awesome. And let's see. Do you know what year like his parents came
To to
to
America?
Hawaii? Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure, but it was a long time ago. And I used to make up this story about how my name came about. Because my grandpa was actually um around when he was in the Philippines when the Japanese took over. And
Mm.
so I used to make up a story saying like when they asked me why is your name German? So I used to tell people, oh, my grandpa befriended
Oh my
a
gosh.
Ger a
No, no,
German
keep going.
soldier. Yeah, my grandpa befriended a German soldier, and his name was Franz, and that's how I got my name. Which this is all completely lies, but like my grandpa was around that time. I don't know. I'm really not sure when his family went to America, but
Mm.
I should ask my mom about that because she would know.
Yeah. No, I'm just asking because you know how in Hawaii there's Filipinos who come at different times for different
Hmm.
reasons. Yeah. I was trying to also ask if perhaps like you had relatives who were Sakata or the plantation um workers, or do you still have to ask about that?
Oh yeah. So my grandpa actually was he did work a little bit as that. So basically what from what I know, my
Mm.
grandfather worked a little bit um in Hawaii um in the plantation, and that's how he got the money to kind
Oh,
of build homes for his kids in the Philippines. So that's what I know. I'm not sure what he did, but like I know for a fact that he worked in Hawaii for a bit.
oh wow. So when you go to Davao, are there a lot of the houses he built? Are they together like a
Just my just so my dad has 5 sisters and he's the only boy.
Mm.
All of his sisters actually don't live in that house that my grandpa got them anymore. So they all kind of split and they all have their own homes. But my dad, we actually still go back to the house that my grandpa had got my dad. It's still there, and it's actually we made it
Wow.
a little bigger and better. So yeah,
Oh, that's awesome. It's like family working
yeah.
together. Get the house
It's like
built.
it's like generational. So when my parents go, my older sister and my older brother will have it.
Mm. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I forgot to ask you, but what age did you come to Hawaii?
Um, I believe I was like 6 or 7.
So, what is that? Like elementary school or?
Yeah, I was in the second grade when I came here.
Mm.
But the thing was that so I've always been kind of like a smart kid. So in the Philippines, I excelled in the English language. So when I came here, I already know how to speak English pretty well.
Oh, that's so awesome. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I wanted to ask if you still remembered life back in the Philippines growing up.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
how was that like when you were like before you came to Hawaii?
It was great. Like I learned a lot of things from I learned I still remember a lot of faces like with people I grew up with, and then I also learned a lot of things from my older brother and my older sister. So growing up in Davao from the time I was still a child there, um, it was kind of like growing up in Kalihi. Like it wasn't very it was kind of a lower class. It was very like rough, but at the same time we had so much fun because when you're a kid back in the 90s, like you just went outside every day, you know? And I remember that so vividly because I still remember all my friends' faces, not much of their names, but like I do remember some names. I try to find them on Facebook, but it's not them. But it's crazy how I can still remember that. It was great growing up there.
Mm, that's so awesome. And you said you had siblings. How many siblings do you have?
I have 3 brothers
Mm.
and 1 sister. My so I have an older brother and an older sister, and then I have another older brother that's um a few years older than me, but he passed away before I was born. So yeah, so yeah, I have
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So, would you say that in Davao, like you hung out with your siblings a lot and like other friends in the neighborhood?
Yeah, we actually had like so the neighborhood that my parents are still in right now. Um I still remember I still see like when I visited last year, I still see some of my neighborhood friends. Um we don't really like keep in touch and stuff, but like
Mm.
I I vividly remember like all the stuff that adventures that we went on and stuff. It's crazy.
What kind of adventures, if you still remember them?
Oh man, we'd go to the forest, look for snakes. I don't know why, but like we'd chase the catabaos, the water buffaloes. We'd
Mm.
chase those and we'd go to school together. We and every day it was just like that. Like we'd walk to school, walk back to school, and then once we got home, we'd put our stuff away and go play outside.
Wow, that's so cool. I love the chasing of the water buffaloes, the
Yeah.
carabao and stuff. Oh my
Yep.
goodness. And then tell me about school there. So it seems like you really enjoyed English class.
Yes. So I went to a school there. It's still there too. I went to a school there. It was just a couple blocks up from my street. It was as you see in the TV, like it's just regular school.
Mm.
But what was different about it was that they for most days they would speak English to us. Like, you
Mm.
know, like they would partially speak English throughout the whole day. So our teacher would kind of like embed it in us that we have to speak English or at least learn it.
Mm.
So so it was, and then we also had TV. So, like a lot of the TV back then was also still English. So if you go back to the Philippines now, everybody speaks English. So
Right.
yeah.
Oh gosh. And when you brought up TV, I'm kind of curious now. Do you remember what you would watch?
Oh yeah. I used to watch a lot of X-Men and Power Rangers and Dragon Ball. Like
Oh shoot. I mean,
every
I can
like
see
yeah,
your
every
banner
day.
behind you too.
Yeah. Yeah, Dragon Ball Z fan forever. I also watched a lot of, it was funny because it would always come on every night.
Mm.
Um I don't know if you know who this guy is, Mr. Bean. He's
I
like this quiet, he's like this quiet guy. Like he just make like he just walk around and live his life, but that he get into some like funny trouble. It was like a British show, but it was always on every night. It was
I think
funny.
I do remember that. Like he has this weird look, right? Like
Yeah, he has this weird look. He's the voice of Zazu in Lion King. That's what I know. So yeah.
I didn't know that. Oh my God. Wow. Huh, so it seems like I mean it seems like a lot of the TV you watched was like already American. So
Hmm.
but yeah, like I guess let me see. Well, speaking of that, like where did you also what kind of music did you listen to in the Philippines?
Uh, what's crazy is that the music I remember listening to in the Philippines was mostly just ballads. Like my brother and my sister loved like rock ballads or like soft rock.
Mm.
I haven't really listened to anything but that. So like when I really think about it, the first one of the first songs I remember, uh when I think about the Philippines growing up, I remember Elton John and a lot of Elvis. So I listened to all that, and yeah, I just grew up appreciating that type of music and a
Yeah.
lot of Filipino music too. I listen to a lot of Filipino music.
Oh my gosh. That's really cool. Like what do they call it? They call it like is it do they call it OPM or
OPM, yeah, yeah, original Pinoy music, so, or
yeah,
original Filipino music. Yeah.
yes. Well, it's so cool. It seems like you are surrounded with like so much like culture at
Mm-hmm.
home. Um I wanted to okay, so I do want to ask more about culture at home, but first, um when someone asks you like, oh, how do you identify like ethnically and stuff, like what do you tell them?
I tell them I'm Filipino, and then they're like, if they some people ask, oh, what kind of Filipino? Then I just say I'm Visayan Filipino. But yeah, that's it. And some people think I'm Hawaiian. Like the people that over here, when you move to the mainland and you tell them you're from Hawaii, they automatically think you're Hawaiian. And it's been the I've learned to just say yeah,
Mm.
yeah. But I'm not Hawaiian. I'm Visayan Filipino.
Right. No, I think that's funny because some people don't really understand that Hawaiian is its own like people. So they're like, oh, you're from
Yes.
Hawaii. So yeah. No, I totally get that. So because okay, so you identify as like Filipino and then Visayan. Um, okay, so there might be differences between like before you left Hawaii and after, but I wanted to ask what languages did you speak at home?
In in Hawaii,
I
or
guess in both, like before you came here and then after.
so it was crazy because in the Philippines I'd speak like fluent Visayan,
Mm,
or some people call it Cebuano. They're both kind of like the same. Um, so spoke that fluently, part some English, but when I moved to Hawaii, it was so funny because out of nowhere, like I stopped speaking like Visayan. Like
mm,
it was so weird. Like I could me and my brother, who was 2 years younger than me, we spoke fluently Visayan, but when we moved to Hawaii, like just like a month or two after, we just completely spoke English. And my parents would wonder like, oh, how come you guys don't talk Visayan anymore, and we just didn't know why. I guess because we just kind of like, because we went to school,
Mm,
we just kind of like um got used to speaking to our friends there in English, and then we were still young, so we, I guess it just kind of we kind of adapted, I guess.
I see. So let me see. Maybe adapted is like I think that's like common. Yeah, if you're in a
Yeah,
new place. Um,
yeah.
what were the times when you would use your Bisayan, or did you just stop using it completely?
So I when I went to school, so I started school in Hawaii in the third grade. I would I would have like I would have an actual cousin I would meet in school, and he would speak to me in Visayan, and then I
Mm,
would speak to him back, and then like months after I stopped speaking. So, but there would be times where he'd ask me a question in Visayan, and I would reply back. So I knew I still had it in me, but I just couldn't do it fluently anymore. And I remember there was this one time, there was this, it was so funny because I was, it was me and my brother waiting for breakfast in
mm,
Pu'uhala Elementary School. And there was this big dude who's in my class. I forget his name, but he would make fun of me because I guess he would call me fob or stuff like that. So I remember turning around to my brother and start calling him like funny names in Visayan. And then we'd just giggle. And then I remember he looked at us and he was like, "What are you saying? What are
mm.
you saying? Why are you saying all of that?" And, and we just giggle. And I remember he cried and he told the teacher saying, "Oh, he's making fun of me in his language." And then I was like, "What? Like he's making fun of us first, you know?" But my teacher was asking, or the teacher that was there asked, "Oh, what were you saying?" And we were saying, "No, we're just talking to each other." But I forget, we were making fun of him in our language.
Yeah. But it's so funny. Oh my gosh. It's like you're also trying to you know, defend yourself, because it's like if someone's gonna call you fob in a, bad way, like of course.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. Were there any other instances, like other places where you would use your Visayan?
Um.
Hmm.
To be honest, just in school, and when I spoke with my cousin in school, um, he would talk to me in Visayan and to kind of like tell me, like, let's say like his he forgot to do his homework. He would ask me in Visayan like, "Oh, can I copy off of yours?"
Mm,
Stuff like that. So yeah, just in school, it was so weird for my brother and I to completely not use it at home anymore at that time.
I see. Yeah. No, that's really interesting that you said that. I am kind of curious about this because you studied English so well in the Philippines. When you
Yeah.
came here and you heard the English here, so like pidgin, um, what did you think about that? And did you participate right away?
Um, you know what's crazy? Yeah, when I came here, they spoke. Yeah, when I heard pidgin, I didn't really notice. I just thought it was kind of like a slang, like the way they would say things, and then but for the most part, I didn't really have any friends outside of school. So while we were in school, everybody kind of spoke proper because the teachers and stuff like that. But during recesses, I would hear them speak like yeah. I just thought it was the way of life here. I didn't make much of it, but I thought it was like, okay, this is how you speak. I guess I'll speak like this too, like, you know.
Okay. So you also adapted then right
Yeah, I
away.
adapted. I noticed that they didn't say like so in the Philippines they teach you like the real proper way to
Mm,
speak and to do American stuff. Like I remember growing up, I was taught to eat with a spoon and a fork, like, you know, like this. But
mhm,
when I got to Hawaii, I remember we went to lunch at school, and all we got was a fork. So I was like, huh, like, it's like so, and then I started learning like, oh, you just need a fork, like you don't really need a spoon. It was weird, but that was one thing that I remember.
Yeah, it seems like yeah, that was like oh, I just noticed this. Was there any other instances where you had that too?
Um, yeah, so a lot of people when it moved to Hawaii, I realized a lot of people um so when I moved to Hawaii, I was already we already lived in Kalihi on Kalani
Mm.
Street, and I thought it was gonna be like like neighborhoods and like like lawns and shit like that. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, it's okay. Just say whatever you want to say, because is it because of the things you saw on TV?
Yes, yes. When it first got to our apartment, I was like, oh, I thought we'd have like a lawn. I thought we'd have like like a
Mm,
like a backyard, but we actually moved to like an apartment, and it kind of disappointed me because it really like in the TV, from what I watched, um I would I would get the idea that moving to America would already be like an easy life, or like a
mm,
like glamorous. So when I moved to Hawaii, I was like, oh man, I guess everybody's like me. Like nobody looked like they were dressed nice every day. Like the kids I saw in our neighborhood would be wearing slippers and like no shirt, walking around. So yeah.
mm. Yeah, see, that was my next question. I was gonna ask you about, oh, what'd you think about, Hawaii or the US before, and then when you first got there. So, um, that's really interesting that you said that. Um, okay, so I wanted to know more about your household. So, like, what kind of food did you eat growing up?
Um, it was all Filipino food, like growing up. In the Philippines, it was all Filipino food. The first time, it was crazy because the first time, so the day before, no, actually 2 days before we moved to Hawaii, my mom took the whole family to this place called Texas Fried Chicken. It's still there, and that was the first time I ever had fried chicken, and it was different because every day in the Philippines would just be Filipino food. Like we'd have French fries and all that stuff, but I think that's
Mm,
the first time I fell in love with fried chicken, and that was my first ever taste of like America. And then when we moved to Hawaii, it was a bit of everything. I had my first burger in McDonald's in
mm.
Kalihi. I had my first spam musubi in 7-Eleven. So that was a real culture shock. Not really, but like kind of
Mm.
like it, I guess I had to adapt again. Like, oh, okay, like there's multiple types of foods here in America. So
I see. So you still kept eating Filipino food even though you had like different tastes here?
oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like my mom would cook, my dad would cook, and I actually prefer their cooking rather than us going out and stuff. So yeah.
What are your favorite dishes?
Um Filipino food or just in
Yeah.
general?
Well, Filipino food first and then expanding outward.
Oh man, I love chicken. So my favorite is my favorite Filipino food would be chicken adobo. Like
Mm.
I have to slow down on that, so because I love it so much. And then American wise, I love fried chicken. Like I made it. There was a point in my life where I ate fried chicken so much. So in 2017, I promised myself I'm just gonna eat it once a month. So I eat it once a month, and that's my special fried chicken day.
Is it because it's like for health and stuff?
Yeah, for health reasons. Like you had no idea. Like there's so many days would I'd buy my family dinner or I'd make them dinner, but I would have a side of just fried chicken that I bought for myself. And then my wife was like, "Oh, you gotta like slow down on that stuff." So I was like, "Okay, I will."
Oh my gosh. Well, like good thing is, I mean, like food is great, but yeah, like I guess when it gets to the point that it's impacting your health, then it's like, ah,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at this point, like I'm pretty healthy. Like I go on I go on a run every morning, and I watch what I eat, and for the most part I eat once a day. So started from 2017 till now, like I've been on this thing where I just eat once a day. Um First I
mm,
did it because for health reasons, and then I got into like it's more of a spirituality thing now for me, because for some reason I think clearer when I'm not like stuffing
mm,
my face in the daytime. That's just me. I feel good like doing this.
yeah. And then you feel really functional. You don't need to like drink coffee or anything.
No, like I don't like.
Huh.
There's some days where like, so I wake up 4 o'clock in the morning every day. If I get a good sleep from the night before, I'll just, you know, sit on the toilet for like 30 minutes, and then I go on a run. Some days I would take like some like a clean pre-workout, just to give me some boost if I don't have a good sleep the night before. But other than that, I'm my mind is always almost clear.
Huh. Oh, that's so awesome. Oh my gosh.
Hmm.
Once a day meal. Dang, was it
Yeah.
hard at first? I know this is not about the research, but
No,
yeah.
no, but no, I'm glad that you're asking, but like, yeah, it was very hard at first. There was a time where I used to work at my old job, and I used to work late at night, and me and my coworker, one of my good friends, he we would go to a place called Roberto's, and it was like this Mexican spot, and we'd eat so much food late at night. And I didn't even notice it, but like there was a day when my boss was like, "Oh, I'll give you guys $50 if you can do 100 push-ups." And I've done 100 push-ups easy before. So I was like doing push-ups, and I had a hard time on at 30. So I was like, "What the hell's going on?" And then I remember I checked the mirror, and I'm like, "Holy crap, I gained
Mm,
weight." I didn't notice, but I gained weight. So that I made it like I didn't even know about it's. I guess it's called intermittent fasting, but I didn't
mm.
even know about that. I just told myself I'm just gonna eat dinner every day, and I started doing that, and literally like in 2 weeks I was back to normal. And then I started running because I used to just like to run, so I just started running every morning.
Huh. Oh, no, I think that's great that you're healthy and making these decisions because I mean like that's part of the culture too, right? There's so much good food in,
Oh
Hawaii
yes.
and America in general. But it's like, okay, it's not always that great for you, especially with how I don't know, our food has so much chemicals in it.
Oh my gosh, yeah, our food is too good. Like I
Yeah.
told my wife, like the thing about Filipino food is that it's so good, but too much of a good thing is bad for you, like, so I slow it down too. But it's crazy because almost every Sunday after church we'd go to like a Filipino food spot, literally a block down from our church. So that's one of our family things that we like to do together.
Oh, that's so awesome. And you're talking about like now in Vegas?
Yes, yeah,
Cool. Actually,
yeah.
I did want to ask about that. So, well, so you go to church in Vegas every Sunday. Was it like that when you're in Hawaii too?
Yes, so I grew up in a Christian family. Excuse me. Yeah, so growing up, I remember from the youngest age, like probably like 5, I was in church every Sunday. And my I remember my mom and dad used to sing in the choir. And then when we moved to Hawaii, we'd go to church every Sunday still. My and when we moved to Hawaii, I met a lot of my relatives, and my uncle was actually a pastor for a Baptist church. So every Sunday, man, we'd go to church, and that's how I kind of live. Like I'm always proud of that, like growing up in church. So yeah.
Was the church in Kalihi?
So the first church I went to in Hawaii was in Mililani. I forget what the church was called. And then my uncle started to he made his own church, which was in Kalihi on King Street, and there's a barber shop there called um Bob's Barber Shop. It's on Kalihi and Kopke. So the church would literally be a room, just a small room upstairs of that barber shop. And that's where we went to church every Sunday. And then my uncle got sick and he stopped we couldn't pay the bill there, I guess. So we didn't go to that church anymore. So we went to another church um in somewhere in downtown Honolulu called Independent Baptist Church. And yeah, I like that church too.
And then who would you go with? So mom, dad.
My mom, my dad, my little brother, and it's crazy because some we kind of influenced our friends on the street that we grew up in Kalihi to come to church with us, and actually made it more fun, you know. We they sometimes they just come to our door in the morning Sunday and say, "Oh, Franz, you going to church?" We're like, "Yeah, let's go," and we'd all just jump in my family's car and we'd all go to church.
Oh, wow. Do you okay, what did you like best about church? So it seems like Friends was one point. What else?
You know what's crazy? To be honest, I used to not like to go to church.
For real?
like
Wait, tell
like
me
so
more about that.
okay, so as a kid, like you just want to chill, you know.
Mm,
When you wake up in the morning, you just chill. Cause so if you've been to like I'm sure you've been to church, but like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
when you go to church, when I was a kid, I used to dislike it because it was very boring to me. Like we just sit in there. So when we were young, it was fun because they sent us to like a kids class.
Yeah.
So we'd be like, oh yeah, like me and my friends would like have fun and like they'd have contests there and like we'd learn at the same time. So it was fun. But starting around middle school, I just was bored. But and we because we'd be sitting with the parents just listening to a sermon all day for an hour and a half or something. But what's crazy is that when I grow up, like when I'm now that I'm a full grown adult, um, what's crazy is that when you do that as a kid, you actually subconsciously learn. Like even
Mm,
though you're just sitting there bored out of your mind, you're actually learning things, you know? So I made it to I made it so that my kids, because they my kids come to church every Sunday with us, they'd be bored too. Like and but I feel like how I learned a lot of things about God was just being there, sitting there, being bored. But I'm actually taking things in.
mm. No, no, yeah, I can understand that. Well, yeah, I go to church. What is it? You talk to Jordan a lot, so Jordan's dating Sharina, and
Oh
I
yeah,
know
that's
you.
my boy.
Yeah, like you're always like making music together, and he's always like
Yeah.
telling me like, oh yeah, like I did this new thing, but yeah, like yeah, I guess like church is so like common, but yeah, me Sharina we went to St. Anthony Church, but then like later on we started like going to more like Protestant churches,
Uh-huh.
so yeah,
Oh, St. Anthony on Puahale Road?
yeah, that was like our
Oh,
church
okay.
growing up. Yeah, so I get what you're saying about how you're just like sitting in the pews. It's kind of boring. You just want to hang out with your friends, you know?
Uh-huh.
Um, and tell me more about the friends on your street that you would bring to church. Um, like did you also talk to them in Filipino or just like English?
So this is what's crazy. So when we moved uh to Kalihi, the street that I grew up in is called Kahanu Street. First we lived in Kalani Street, and then our house actually burned there, like our apartment burned down.
Oh
And
shoot.
then yeah, so it burned down. And then we moved to Ashford for like a couple months. No, not Ashford, Auula. We moved to Auula for a couple
Mm-hmm.
months, and then we finally moved to Kahanu Street, and that's where I grew up in. Kahanu
Mm-hmm.
Street is like right across the Kalakaua, but it's more down So my Kahanu Street was close to Pohala Road. So,
Okay, got it.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so Kahanu Street, and all the people that I grew up with there, I spoke to them in English because
Mm,
they spoke Ilocano. Like
mhm,
they were all Ilocano. So and that's the first time. So growing up, I only thought there's only Visayan and Tagalog, and then I learned when I talked to them, they're like, "Oh, I'm Filipino too." I was like, "Oh." Then I started saying stuff to them. They didn't understand Visayan, so I spoke to them in Tagalog, and they're like, "Oh, I understand a little bit." So I was like, "What do you guys speak?" And they're like, "Oh, we're Ilocano." I was like, "What is Ilocano?" And then my mom told me about that. I was like, "Oh, that's so crazy." And then
mhm,
yeah, like we didn't speak. Like I'd hear their parents, and then I kind of understand a little Ilocano because I would hear them
mm,
speak to each other in Ilocano, and then
mhm,
yeah, so we just spoke English, but I grew up with just mainly Ilocano guys, like there, and I still we're very close to this day. Like every time I go to Hawaii, like we kick it and stuff. Yeah. But what's crazy? Side story. Like I went to so so when I moved to Hawaii in '96, I haven't gone back to the Philippines all the way till I was 13. So it was like 2003. I went to the
wow,
Philippines. Yeah. So, and then my older brother and my older sister, they asked me one time, "Oh, tell us about your friends over there." And they're like, "Oh yeah, like I love my friends." And they're like, "Oh, are they Filipino?" I was like, "Yeah, like almost all my friends are Filipino." And they're like, "What? So you guys how do you guys so you guys just speak Filipino all day?" I was like, "No, like I don't understand them because they're Ilocano." And they're like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, they're Ilocano." And they're like, "Franz." And like this is like way
yeah,
before.
yeah.
So they're like, "Franz, did you know that we don't like Ilocano?" I was like, "Huh?" So I was like, so my brother told me they're like, "No, we don't, it's not like we hate them, but we have problems with them before." I was like,
Mm,
"So what happened?" So I guess back then there used to be a thing where they disliked each other. Like Cebuanos, Visayans didn't like Ilocanos. That was like kind of like a civil war, like inner
mm,
civil war thing in the Philippines. But I told them no, like in Hawaii, you grew up with whoever you're growing up with. Like, I grew up with a bunch of Samoans, I grew up with Hawaiians, Chinese, Filipino. And they're like, "Oh, I thought it's just all American there." Or, if there's a Filipino community, I thought it would be Tagalog. And we're like, "No." I
mm.
and it's what's crazy, I've never met a Tagalog till middle school in Kalihi. It was mostly Ilocano.
Right, right. Huh. Wow, that is really crazy. It's so
Yeah.
interesting that you, you had to go back to the Philippines to like learn like, oh, there is this civil war thing.
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
know.
Did your friends that were Ilocano, did they know about it?
No. What's crazy is that my parents and my friends' parents, they got along well. Like, so I don't think it was like, I think it was like an old generational thing. But
Mm,
once you move to Hawaii, like when you're an adult, I guess you understand like, oh, that's all bull crap, like let's not bring that over here. So like I grew up being treated nicely by my friends' parents who are Ilocano. Like they fed me all the time. They took care of
mm,
me sometimes. So yeah, there was no like there's nothing here in Hawaii.
I see. So it's just a different kind of context and
Yeah,
um
I guess in the Philippines it was a thing. Now not anymore, but I guess
ah,
back then it was. Yeah.
I just remembered because so Davao is a little different, yeah. Like there's like different kinds of it's not just Visayan, right?
So Davao, it was I don't know, like it was mostly Visayan and people would
Mhm.
speak Tagalog at the time. The former president was the mayor of Davao, Duterte. So he's from Davao, and um so yeah, like I've never met anybody Ilocano growing up in Davao, or I just knew it was Tagalog and Visayan. And I think I learned of Ilonggo, which
Oh
is
yeah.
yeah, kind of similar to Visayan, I guess, you know? So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a couple of Ilonggo here that I've met in Kalihi. but it's mostly a Cebuano. Yeah.
Yeah. Same. Are you? What are you like?
I'm Visayan, so my dad speaks
Oh,
Cebu.
nice,
Yeah. So I think
nice.
that's why like when I think me and my sisters heard that you and your brother, so his name is Aubrey, right? Or
Yeah, yeah. It's
yeah.
Aubrey.
I remember back in the day they're like, "Oh yeah, that's the brothers are beside." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." Cuz it's just few and far between. It's like it's nothing like bad. Like, I have Ilocano friends, but it's just one of those things where it's like, "Oh, someone is Bisayan. Wow, that's awesome."
Yeah, so that's how kind of like not to say like my friends weren't looked at, but like growing up when we got into a lot of trouble, they were kind of like people would it was always me and my brother that would be like front lines, like, with other like when we got into like a lot of like scuffles with other people, but they
Mm,
would automatically they would be like, oh, that's why they're so tough like that because they're Visayan. Like we'd automatically get that. It's not really a bad thing, but at the same time, it's like it made us like seem like we're rare. You know what I mean? Like,
mm,
and I remember back then too. Like there would be like a lot of rivalries with Bisayans and Ilocanos. Like like
like
so.
gangs.
Yeah, a lot of gang stuffs, and then it was weird because as when I got into high school, that was still going on, but like my group of friends was just Ilocanos and Bisayan. And it was just me and my brother who were Bisayan. So um
Mm,
they thought that we were kind of like, oh, you guys are, like just regular kids. But when we got into like fights and stuff, it would just a lot of times it would be me and my brother, like who wasn't like afraid to step up. So they would be like, oh, that's why, because they're Bisayan.
I
So
see.
like yeah,
That's really interesting. I definitely feel like there's that thought like, oh yeah, besides are the fighters. That's why you have Manny Pacquiao and stuff,
yeah.
right?
When I learned he was Bisayan, I was like, oh, hell yeah, that's my man right there. He
Yeah.
even added more to the legend, like, oh, these guys are the rare breed, I was like, yep.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I do want to talk more about that in a bit. I want to ask a little bit more questions about like family,
Of
but I
course.
am very curious about all of that. But because okay, so for you and your immediate family, back in Hawaii, other than church, what else did you do together?
Um, so my family, so other than church, we'd actually go do a lot of family stuff with like my auntie and uncles and all that stuff. But my parents were actually old when so when I was in middle school, when I was like in elementary, my parents were already in like their late 40s. So they didn't take up it's crazy because they didn't take us to watch movies. So
Mm,
the first movie I've seen ever was The Lion King in the
mm,
Philippines, and my brother and my older brother and my older sister took me to watch it. When we moved to Hawaii, we like when I was growing up as a kid, I my parents never took us to the movies. They would take us to the mall, but they would only take us to Fun Factory and to eat at the food court. But it's crazy, like as simple as that sounds, like I really cherish those moments, those memories, because my parents struggled for the most part when we were living in Kalihi when I was still in elementary school. They struggled, but they made every little outing such a memorable one. They'd give us like $20 each to go to Fun Factory. $20 was a lot back then. So we'd have a blast. Like sometimes they'd give us $5 and we'd be happy, but like some days they'd give us $20 and be like, oh, that's what? Like, okay. Then me and my brother would just be playing it. Whoa, my bad. Me and my
no.
brother would be playing Fun Factory, and then yeah, like other than that, they take us to the beach.
Mhm.
Just really simple stuff because they were old. They didn't know like we felt left out sometimes when we would go to school, and then my friends would be like, oh, you guys watched the new movie, this and that, and then I would I would say no, I've never watched it yet, and we'd always wait for the VHS or the DVD to come out because my parents didn't take us at all. But at the
Mm,
same time, like I'm still grateful that they did what they could to have us to let us have a good time, you know?
that's awesome. And speaking of like struggle, like did you mean in terms of like money wise or like
Yes. So they worked so my dad and my mom, they had like pretty stable jobs, but in the 90s, Hawaii was still like kind of like growing economically, I believe. So there were like a lot of times where rent would be risen up. So they would have like I remember they'd have some arguments or they'd have some discussions amongst themselves, you know, like talking about bills and stuff like that. And then yeah, like it like they told us like my I remember my dad would always be, you know, like sometimes he'd be mad and be like, "Oh, I gotta go to work tomorrow, and you guys, you know, and you guys can't even clean up the house. Like, you know, the bills are so high." So there's a lot of time. There's even a good, I think, 2 years when we didn't have cable just to
mm,
just so that we can stay afloat with every other bill, you know.
yeah. And during that time, what jobs did your parents work?
My dad was let's see. Oh yeah, so he was a maintenance guy for a build like a so there's a law firm in downtown. I'm not sure if it's still there, but it was this building and he would be the maintenance guy. So he had a pretty good job. Like he would be the guy they would call to fix electricity stuff, um to um to like let's see like you know, clean up things. He was like also partial uh part-time janitor, I guess, too. So just to make
Mm,
extra money, you know. And my mom would be she worked for a long time as a she worked in Nishodo factory. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's still there in Kalihi. It's a mochi factory in it's on Dillingham.
huh.
And yeah, they make like traditional Japanese mochi. And when I got when I got with my wife who was my girlfriend before, and I remember I celebrated kind of like a I think it was Girls' Day or something like that. So,
Mm,
Girls' Day or Boys' Day, one of those they celebrate in Japan. So I went to their house. We celebrated Girls' Day, and then they brought packs of mochi, and I'm like, and it said Nishodo on it, and I'm like, oh, my mom works there, and they're like, really? It's like, yeah, like, and they're like, oh, did you know that this is the main like mochi factory that like Japanese traditional Japanese people go to? I was like, wow, really? They're like, yeah, that's what I guess that's why they're still in business today because like Japanese temples there or Japanese families there, if they want to do traditional mochi eating, they would go to Nishoda factory. So
wow.
that's what my mom did.
Huh, that's really cool. Like it just seems like your parents like, worked really hard and
Mm-hmm.
even if maybe they were tired, it seems like they just tried to make sure that they were with you, trying to make good experiences. So,
Yeah, they did, man. They did so much for us. Like I remember back then it was a little embarrassing to because so my mom would take us to like Savers like every weekend to kind of like get that's where we would get clothes. And I remember I would be kind of embarrassed about it because it's you know it was like it was used clothes, you know. So when we got to middle school, I asked my mom like, oh mom, can instead of Savers, can we go to another store? And then she took us to Ross. Like and back then, like Ross was
mm,
also kind of like oh you got that from Ross. So like and at the same time when I grew up, I was like, bruh, like the Savers and Ross is actually cool. And nowadays it's so unfair because kids thrift. Like my daughters who are teenagers, oh, can we go thrifting today? I'm like,
mm,
bruh, you know what I mean? Like it's growing up, it was embarrassing for me, but now today it's cool. But at the same time, I was grateful, I was very grateful. I remember walking home from Savers. So there's a time where our car was broken and it was in a shop and we walked to Savers and I remember we had so much bags coming out. We'd have Savers bags with me. It was me and my brother and my mom. We'd be walking home and we'd me and my brother would feel so embarrassed carrying so much Savers bags home. And when I think about it now, I'm like, man, why was I embarrassed? You know, like my parents. Uh, when I think about it now, I think like, uh, so back then I thought it was only us struggling in
Mm,
Kalihi.
mhm.
But when you grow up, you realize everybody was like, you know, like going up. Like times weren't always happy for everybody. So I realize now, like everybody was struggling back then. So why would I be embarrassed? You know. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a common feeling like what is it? Because I live on Dillingham, so you know, everyone wanted to like dress up a certain way or like brands, and then my family would be like, yeah, we could just go Savers. And I'd be like, no, I don't want to do
Yeah.
that. I want to go Hollister or something, you know, like
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so I understand the embarrassment, but no, thanks for sharing that story about just
Oh
like,
yeah.
you know, trying to carry all these bags, like
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, yeah, that's really interesting. So you just went to Savers together, you went to church together, Fun Factory.
Fun
Um,
factor. Yep.
is that the one at
It's
Camp Shopping or
huh? What
Camp
was that?
Shopping Center at Camp?
Yes, camp shopping. They take us to Alamwana sometimes, but there was no like game places there. So it was funny because when he took us to Alamwana, all, all we went to see is the koi fish.
Hmm.
So they'd show us the koi fish, and then we'd go eat at the food court, and then we would go to Long's Drugs, and then we'd go home. We didn't shop for clothes or anything at all when we went to Alamwana. So yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, just it's just like kind of like just cruising and stuff. Then.
Yeah, just cruising. I didn't even know about Purridge until I was middle school. Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So, oh my gosh. See, okay. Just a couple more questions on like you know family and stuff, but
Of course, yeah.
you know for okay, so it's like a two-part question, but you know, what values were important to your family in Hawaii? And did you always share those same values?
Um so my mom and my dad um made sure we understand that we're living because we're living for God. So it was like we're a very not really religious, like we're kind of more like very spiritual. Like I like to say that. Like I'm a more spiritual person than religious. um they taught us, like, you know, like even after church they'd say, oh, I know you guys don't understand some things, but we take you guys to church so that you guys know that Jesus or God, the lessons, I want you guys to bring it in life. Like, so they taught us to always do the right thing, never they taught us to never be afraid of anybody because we're all just human. And we carried me and my brother carried that on in life because even to this day, so even when we got into like so much trouble, it was we were never ones to we told ourselves to never start trouble, um basically to just defend ourselves, you know. But at the same time, what my parents taught us was very like important that I still teach today to my kids, like, you know, to every day when I drop off my son to school, I tell him, do what Jesus would do. Be kind to others, um, and always help, no matter what. Like no matter what, help whoever needs help, whether it be like into trouble or if they need help with homework. If you know how to help them, help them. And I taught them. I told them, like, you know, I have all of these friends that I still kept from my childhood to till today because of kindness. Like if you want lifelong friends, if you want lifelong relationships with people, be kind. Always do the right thing, you know? And yeah, that's what I carry on till today.
That's really inspiring, and I'm glad that you could bring that to your children. Like, you know, this is
Mm-hmm.
how you treat other people. So that's a really important value.
It
Um,
is, yeah.
so let me see. Did you ever like I guess like disagree with some values that your like your parents would have or family in general, or not really?
Um, not so not my parents, but um, so as I mentioned before, my uncle, who was a pastor. Um, he's gone now. He passed away like years back. Rest in peace. But at the same time, when he was a pastor, he was one of those pastors where everything to him was the devil, you know. So I remember this one time I was wearing these bracelets. They were these rubber bracelets, and I didn't know they were like sex bracelets or something. And he would he he talked about it in a sermon, like, "Oh, if you're wearing that, you're a sexual deviant." And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't even know." So at the same time, so there's another time where I kind of like looked at him different already. So he said in one, it was funny because I always felt like he was talking to us. So there was this one time he spoke in a sermon, and he said, "Oh, if you own a PS2, you're 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 supporting the devil." And that's when I was like, you know what? No, I'm gonna follow God on my own terms. That this is like when I was in the middle school. Because think about it. If let's say I went to school for programming or for electronic or digital imaging, but I was a Christian, you know, like I prayed every day, studied every day, asked Jesus, asked God to like guide me through my exams, and I passed, and I get hired by Sony, and I'm part of the team that made the PS2. Does that make me a devil worshiper? No, right? So that's when I looked at my uncle. I'm like, no, like this isn't right because you're automatically judging something that you don't understand. So that's when I still went to church, and I still like took in a lot of lessons from church, but I totally disagreed with my uncle at that time, where he was like, no, like everything that you're doing outside of church is the devil's work. Like, no, not everything is the devil's work. You know what I mean? So that's the only thing I disagreed growing up.
Yeah, no, I think that's important to say because there's like one could be Christian, but lots of Christians have like different ways of like, theology and belief.
Yes.
Yeah, and then I was gonna ask you like, did when he said something about like the sex bracelets, because I know those were in at the time, like did he make you feel shame about it
Oh
or
yeah. I felt so this was when he said that I was in the eighth grade, and I remember I just put them on. Like I remember we got them from Hot Topic. Like me and my friends went to Hot Topic one day, and I got bracelets, and I just put them on. And then when he said that, I was like surprised. I was like, wait, I didn't know these were sex bracelets. Like I just thought they were bracelets, and I just put them on. So when he said that in church, I felt really like embarrassed, like after church, because after church we'd have like a little like potluck, and we'd be eating, and then I remember taking them off because I was like, oh man, like I don't want to be looked at as like I'm a I'm only a kid. I haven't had sex yet or anything. I don't want them to think I'm walking around church being sexually immoral. You know what I mean? So yeah.
no, thanks for sharing that. Like yeah, there's just certain like values that, we agree with family and certain things we don't. But going off of that, as a young Filipino boy growing up in Kalihi, did your family have any kind of expectations of you?
Yeah. So one thing so this is kind of like going back to the a couple questions prior. Like this is another thing that I kind of disagreed on or like disliked about my parents, is that they compared me to my my cousins a lot. Like, oh, so there I'd have older cousins that would excel in school. And I was smart in school. So I was very smart, but there would be times where I'd get like a D from a test, and it'd be like, "Oh, your cousin so and so passed this with ease." So I'm like, "Man, like don't compare me to them, you know?" I would think like that. But they expected me to they expected me to have basically uh a normal life, like nothing crazy. So when they asked me what I wanted to be, um I told them I wanted to draw. I said I could, and my parents would be like, "Oh, you can be an architect, I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And they'd be like, what do you want to be? I said, oh, maybe I can design video games. Like that's what I at the first when I was growing up, I really wanted to design like draw characters for video games. So I told them, oh, I'm gonna go to school for that. So they expected me to excel. They expected me and my brother to succeed in life because we did have goals, you know.
Yeah, no, it seemed like, oh, school was a value. Did they have any other kind of expectations? Because and maybe I'm just like trying to ask for you as like a, you know, growing into a man, were there any expectations of what it meant to be like a Filipino man? Um,
Oh yeah, yeah. So they made sure. So when they took me back to visit Davao again when I was a teenager, they they kind of did that so that I could get in touch back with my roots. So they made sure I was always proud of who I grew up, like who I am, like ethnically or who my family was. They made sure they wanted me to kind of like carry on not tradition but like the lessons that they taught me like and they also wanted me to not be ashamed of my background, which I never was. Like I never thought it was anything embarrassing at all. So yeah, like they made sure that you let them know that you're Filipino, you let them know that you're Visayan, that you came up from the bottom. Yeah, and I carry that to today.
that's awesome. Um, I wanted to ask too, like, were there times or moments where you couldn't embrace your authentic self in your family home? Or were you always supported?
Oh, I was um I think in my late teens I got into a lot of trouble. um at home it would be okay, like, but having teenagers now, it's like we barely talk to our parents, and that's sometimes my kids, my daughters rarely talk to us now. I mean, we talk, but at the same time it's like not as much as before. So growing up in my late teens, I used to not. So in the streets when I was with my friends, I was very active. I was, like, but when I got home, it would be like quiet. Like I wouldn't be as active as I was in the street. And at the same time, I always showed respect to my parents. Um, I remember one time I got sent home because I was fighting in school, and no matter how angry I was, I remember my dad was like, "Oh, you think you're so tough? Hit me then. Hit me right now." No matter how angry I was, I never raised my hands on my mom or dad. Like, I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Like, you taught me better. So yeah, and also like in family gatherings, I would be a totally different guy. Like, because I wasn't a troublemaker, but I got into a lot of trouble. But when it came to family gatherings, I'd be like this good kid, that I try to let them know that, oh, I'm still having good grades no matter what you hear about me. Yeah.
Okay. And then oh my gosh, okay. Almost there. So
No, no
I was
worries. Take your time.
okay, okay. I was gonna ask you about because you said so you said that you didn't feel shame at all about being Filipino. Do you identify yourself as local to Hawaii?
Oh yeah, all the time, man. Like there's a lot of times where um I would just let them know I'm from Kalihi. Like when I go back home, I feel at home. Like I don't feel like, because I visit every year, like once or twice a year. This year, this year I'm gonna be in Hawaii for the third time in December, but like I don't ever feel like I left, in a way. So every time somebody asks, oh, even in Vegas, they call this the ninth island. We call ourselves, oh, you local? Huh? You from where you from back home? Like, oh, Kalihi, dog. I never shy away from that. Um, yes, there's like a little stigma to where we're from. There's like they look at it as the hood, but you gotta kind of be proud of that. You gotta live up to it. Like, you know what? Yeah, it was the hood, and look at me now. Like I'm living a nice, decent life. So yeah, I never shy away from who I am and where I'm from.
I see. So okay, so in Hawaii, were you ever because in Hawaii we're all local, quote
Yeah.
unquote local, but did you ever feel like did you ever have like fights because you came from a different neighborhood as somebody? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Growing up in the 2000s when I was a teenager, the early 2000s, that was a lot of fights were territorial, man. Like we'd go to Per Ridge, um, and then people would know that we're from Kalihi, and we'd get into it in the parking lot. There was this one time. There was this one time I went to watch the movie with my friend, me and my friends, and these big Samoan guys came up to us. Oh, where are you guys from? I was like, oh, it was funny because we lied. We're like, oh, we're from Makiki area. We go to McKinley, and those solas would blast our face because they were from Kalihi. So if we said we were
Oh,
from Kalihi, they would have been like, oh, what's up, bro? But we lied. We're like, oh, we're from Makiki.
oh man, so you could have like saved yourself if you just said you're from Kalihi.
Yeah. So basically, so what happened? So we got punched, like we got beat up in the theater. When we got out of the theater, the Samoans were there, and they actually apologized, and they're like, hey guys, sorry, man. Like, we don't like guys from Makiki. And we're like, man, to be honest, we're from Kalihi. We're from Kahanu Street. And they're like, bruh, we're from KPT. How come you guys never said you're from Kalihi? I was like, I don't know. Like, we just didn't want to say we're from Kalihi. Because we were like back then we had a lot of problems with it was like Samoans versus Filipinos, so we had to be careful. Yeah, that's why I don't lie, man. The truth will set you free.
No, that's really interesting. So it's mostly territorial and
Mm-hmm.
so okay, was it just so it was like you and your friends on your street that you would hang out with, and you'd go cruising everywhere.
Um,
Were
so
there other groups too?
so basically, like from elementary to like the start of middle school, it was just me and my friends from Kahanu Street. But like in middle school all the way till now, it was people we made friends with in school. And then we'd form like a good friendship, and we'd hang out at Kahanu Street. They weren't from Kahanu, but we made our street like the main hangout spot. So a lot of guys would be up from the valley. A lot of guys would live in Mayor Wrights. There's a few that lived in KPT and Cam Housing, but we'd all meet up in Kahanu Street.
Okay. So pretty much it's like all the housing kids go to your street then and
Yeah,
like
pretty
all
much.
hanging out and stuff. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then that was like your main friend group then?
Yeah, so we in middle school we were so in middle school we were just a bunch of friends, and I remember I believe I was in the 8th grade, and they came out with the movie Fast and the Furious, the first one. So we were kids, so we were just like, you know what, let's we wish we had cars, but we only had bikes. So we made like a so back then in Kalihi, when that movie came out, kids would actually form groups, and they would call it bike crews. Like we'd have actual racing bike crews. So there was a crew called SIR. I think they were called Serious Intense Racing. And I remember they would just come into Kalihi Kai, the long parking lot in Kalihi Kai, and they would just race. And then me and my friends were like, bro, we do that too. So we were like, okay, let's form our own group. So we formed INR. So what INR stood for before was Insane Notorious Racers. So we would actually race these other crews. There was GXR, there was SIR, and then there was INR. So we would actually just meet there every weekend and race. It was so cool. I wish we documented those days, but we would race, race, race. And then when we hit high school, we got into a lot of trouble. And then but they knew us as INR, me and my friends. But we didn't want to be like racers. We stopped racing with our bikes in high school already. So we would change um our name to INR from racers to insane notorious realists, and that's how. And we call ourselves, we don't consider ourselves a gang, but people do, I guess. But we're actually like kind of like a brotherhood. We call it a brotherhood, and we till this day we're all still connected.
It's nice to know the origin story because I actually know like Jonathan Roldan, Chris Miko, like they're my grade, that's why. So I remember they
Yeah,
would be
they're
like,
actually,
yeah, INR.
yeah, they were actually our second generations. Like, so there would be like they were just these young kids that hung around us. It was Chris Miko's, so Jonathan too, and then there was Jesse. They hung around us, and then we were like, yeah, you guys want to be INR too? You guys would just be the second generation. So there's actually three generations of INR. So the realists is us, the original guys, and then Chris Miko and Jonathan them was the rebels, and then the third, which was way younger guys than you, they would be the renegades. So that's why they started calling us a gang, because we had generations, and then we'd actually have feuds with other gangs, you know.
Yeah, so pretty much it didn't start off with like fighting though, right? It was just out of fun because you watched this movie and you wanted to create like
Yeah,
yeah.
so it was, I remember so clearly. We were so we it was in a Saturday, and we went to Jack in a Box. We rode all our bikes there, and we're like, man, like those SIR guys are so cool. We're still cool with the SIR guys. We're like, oh, those guys are so cool. They have their own crew. And I was like, yo, let's make our own crew. And I was, and they're like, oh, you serious? So like, yeah. Then I said, let's call ourselves INR. You know, we're insane. We're just we're insane notorious racers, and then we'll just keep up with that name. And then yeah, that's when I started my bike crew. It was an actual bike crew that I started. Like, people say I started a gang. Like, no, it was just a bunch of group of friends who raced bicycles.
That's really funny. And then we're okay. In your bike crew, was there like a mix of people? Or was it just like you, Ilocanos? Who else was part
Oh
of it?
man, it was a mix. It was so funny. So we had like a Hawaiian dude. We had, yeah, a bunch of my neighborhood friends, so Ilocanos, and then just me and my brother as Visayans. And then there was this one guy that came along with us, and his name was Endor. Um, so this, and his name was Endor Sipa. So we're like, oh, this guy's Ilocano, you know. And then we're like, he was just hanging around us. He didn't speak no Filipino at all. But then when we went to his house, his mom started like calling him, and we're like, what language is he speaking? And she's like, she's speaking Micronesian. And we're like, what do you mean? And you're like, I'm Micronesian, bro. And we're like, what is Micronesian? And they're like, oh, uh it's a type of people, like we're below this, the Samoan Islands, I guess. Or but he explained to me, that's the first time I ever heard of a Micronesian. So we're like, dude, we this whole time we thought you were Filipino because your name is Endor Sipa. Like, Sipa is like kick, or and he's like, no, I'm actually Micronesian, bro. But yeah, so we had a Micronesian guy with us, so it was cool. Like, we just grew up with a bunch of people.
Oh my God, that's really cool. When you said Sipa, I remember that game just now, like the
Yes,
game.
yeah.
Shoot.
So I
Of
thought,
course,
at
yeah.
first I thought that was his nickname, because he was pretty good at that game. So we're like, oh, is that your nickname? He's like, no, that's my last name. So I was like, oh, okay. So this is kind of a Filipino game. So I kind of put two and two together. I was like, okay, you are Filipino, but no, he was actually Micronesian.
Oh, that's really cool. I want to ask more about the bike crew. So,
Go ahead,
like,
yeah.
yeah, where did you get your bikes from?
Oh man, so we'd get it from we'd get we'd so this is the thing. Growing up, it was bikes, even till today, like the good bikes. So we mostly raced BMX bikes. The good BMX bikes would be so expensive. There was only like a few guys in our crew that actually got their parents to buy them bikes. But for most of us, like me and my brother, what we did this one weekend was we'd go around all of Kalihi, and people would leave their trash in front of their house, and we'd actually pick out bike parts. And I remember this one time, me and my friends would just gather in Kahanu Street and we'd be building bikes, you know. And then from then on, like we just built bikes. There was even a few times where I'm kind of ashamed to say it, but we would steal bikes, like bikes that were just right there with no like chains. We're like, you know what? Like, looks like nobody owns this, so let's just take it. So yeah, there's that too.
I think it's really cool that, you know, you did it yourself to organize a bike crew. You didn't
Yeah.
like do it through an organization. Um, but like, did you ever feel bad when you stole bikes?
Oh man, we there's a lot of times we felt bad because there was a few times where there was one time where a guy, like I guess he came up to us when we were racing in Kalihi, and he was like this. He looked like an OG gangster, and he was like he was being erratic. He looked at everyone's bikes, and he was like, "Bruh," and he looked at one of my friend's bikes, which is the bike that my friend actually stole, but it was a common bike back then. And he told my friend, "Oh, where'd you get this bike?" And then my friend was like, "Oh, it's from my mom got this from me from Kmart," which is true. Is actually from Kmart, but we actually stole that bike. And he was like, "Bruh, you got my little brother's bike got stolen. If I find out any of you guys stole them, I'm gonna kick you guys asses." So we're like, "Yeah, it wasn't us. It wasn't us." And he just left. He looked super pissed. And at that time, I think we kind of stopped stealing bikes because we've yeah we got a little shook that he kind of like shook us like, but at the same time we was like, oh, that's not cool, you know, like when he said a little brother, we're like, oh, that's not cool, like, oh, we don't want to do that, like, so we stopped stealing bikes from then.
All right. So that was like all in middle school.
Middle school till the beginning of, yeah, it was all in, so I was in the 8th grade, some of my friends were in the 7th and the 6th grade, so when we hit Farrington we stopped all that.
I see. So, okay. So when did it become like a bike crew to like there was trouble? Like how did that became a thing?
So when we got to Farrington, so I got to Farrington first. I was a freshman. So we stopped racing. We didn't call ourselves anything anymore. We were still known as INR because um people just knew us from every neighborhood as, oh, that's INR. But when we all got to high school, we still hung out and they still called us, oh, that's the INR boys. And they're like, oh, what does INR stand for? And then at that point, it was like we didn't want to call ourselves racers, so we just said, "Oh, let's just call ourselves INR," but we call it Insane Notorious Realists. Um, we and when they ask, "Oh, why you guys call yourselves realists?" You know, because we took I took that definition of, you know, accepting reality as it is. Being a realist, you understand that, okay, this is life right now. So I said, okay, we'll just call ourselves that because we're accepting the fact that this is a change of life. Like, we're not kids anymore, but we're still considered insane, notorious, but we're accepting reality, the reality check that which is high school. So now we'll call ourselves realists. You know, it made sense to us, so we're like, okay, let's just call ourselves realists because people were already calling us INR, so we're like doing that. And then, you know, like growing up in Kalihi, attending Farrington, you're gonna get into a fight or two. Like you're gonna get into some, you know, a feud. Like when you're a guy, like it's a rite of passage, I guess. Like I mean, since elementary school, I got into fights already, but in high school, it was serious. Like, you know, like you'd hang out with your friends. When one of your friends has a beef with someone, you're gonna have to back him up. So same goes for other crews. You know, like, oh, he has a problem with one person, the whole crew has a problem with each other. So it was in Farrington when we started like getting into big trouble. You know.
And then were these fights still like Filipinos versus like Samoans, or were they just now it's like different groups that you like that people would create back then?
It was a mix of everything basically. So there would be rivals. There would be a rival crew. So one of the bike crews. Uh, they were called GXR, when we were growing up, when we were still racing, they were called GXR. But when we hit high school, they called themselves Wrecking Crew. And since bike days, we had like a little tension with each other because we'd race each other and we'd be mad at each other. In high school, that kind of elevated to actual hate. So we actually had a real rivalry with these guys, and we would actually like every time we see each other, we'd fight. So they would actually make friends with a lot of Samoans. They would actually make friends with different crews, and those different crews doesn't matter if they were Samoans, Filipinos, or Chinese or whatever. We would all get into fights, you know, like it didn't even matter anymore. It's just crews. But at the same time, there was a point where all the Samoans were against us. So that was a terrible year.
What grade was
Terrible
that?
year. So I was a junior in high school, and my friends were freshmen and sophomores and juniors. Like they're a mix of us. There's even a few that were seniors. And yeah, there was a point where there was a lot of Samoans that hated us. Mainly because they would pick on us and we'd be tough enough to kind of like step up. We'd like, you know, like fight them. Doing that, they'd tell their boys, you know, oh, these guys actually think they tough. And then boom, like that would escalate. There's a lot of times I'll own up to it. Like there's a lot of times we ran away because you just don't mess with Samoan families, man. Like you just don't. And disclaimer, we're actually very cool with these people nowadays because it's weird enough. A lot of Samoan kids grow up to be really decent people. Like I remember out of high school, I worked at a restaurant and I was catching the bus home, and I saw this guy that I actually fought before, and he was like this, and he was in uh like a chef uniform. He just got out of work too, and I didn't want to speak to him because I was like, you know, we had a past. But he came up to me, he was like, "What's up, Franz?" I was like, "What's up, dude?" He go. So we cool now? I was like, yeah, bro. And then we just dapped it up. We hugged each other, and then every night we'd see each other going home from work, and we'd talk shit about work. And I just found out like in Facebook, like he has a happy family now and all that stuff. So yeah, that's it.
I'm glad that you both were able to reconnect and just make peace.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? So, you know, when you did have beef with each other, was it just like culturally too? Like, oh, we don't like someone's because of their culture, or was it just because they were part of a different crew?
um, there wasn't really any animosity to their race. Like I would honestly say like because there were some Samoans. So when it was basically just to keep it short, it would just basically about crews. But because there would be some Samoans that we'd go to class and we'd be cool with them. Like they weren't part of any crew, so we'd be like, you know, we'd have fun in class or like we'd hang out after school. So there wasn't really any racial thing. It was really just about like gang stuff.
No, yeah. No, that's really interesting. I just trying to get the context. But
Yeah.
okay, so like I kind of want to shift gears to be like, oh, if biking wasn't the thing that brought your friends together, what are the other things that you all bonded over?
Oh, that's a great question. Other than riding bicycles, we played a lot of sports. Not like not sports through the schools, but like in the summer we'd play a lot of basketball. We would meet up just to play football in Kalakaua Field, or we would actually box, like we'd spar. So yeah, we were all involved in a lot of sports, and then oh also breakdancing. So hip hop was was a big part of our lives because um there was a guy, like a bunch of my friends and my brother, they got into breakdancing. I got into it a little bit, but I really can't. I'm not a great dancer, you know. So but hip hop brought us together. We'd listen to music. Sometimes we just listen to music and sit there, and or sometimes they practice breakdancing. And yeah, that was other than riding bicycles, you know.
All right. Like, oh yeah, that's really interesting. So hip hop, what was your introduction to hip hop? And yeah, what was your introduction to hip hop?
So there's so when I went to so I remember I was in I was entering fifth grade. I didn't really listen to music at all from like I didn't really care for music. But I remember I think my first rap song that I ever heard was this song called I forget what it's called, but the hook goes, "Give me a ring, a ling, if you want some ding a ling." I'm like, this is stupid, you know? It wasn't catchy to me, but it was funny. So I was like, that's what they call rap, I guess. Later on that year, I tuned into that channel, like to that radio station again. Because my dad would play his CDs and stuff, but I remember he I went to that one hip hop station and I heard The Real Slim Shady by Eminem. And I was like, yo, this is funny. Like, this is cool. Like, he's rhyming everything. And that's the first time I ever got interested in hip hop. I was like, so this is rap. This is hip hop. Like, you actually take poems and match it to a beat. I was like, oh, this is so cool. And then I got into like, I started listening to M. He's like the first guy that really got me into hip hop.
That's really cool. Wait, so again, it was back in middle school that you listened to Eminem or
No, it was in I was in the fifth grade. So
okay.
I was in the fifth grade. I think I was entering sixth grade around there. So it was like 99, 2000 around there. And that's when the real Slim Shady came out. And it was just playing over and over in the radio. And I totally enjoyed it. And then I started listening to other types of rap and I was like, yo, this is so good. Like that's when I started enjoying music, you know?
Mm. So when did you okay, so other than Eminem, like who else would you listen to?
So when I was a kid, it was just mostly Eminem. And then um oh I also so after Eminem I started so so hip hop kind of sparked my love for music overall because I started watching Eminem music videos on MTV and then after his videos would be like a rock song and I'd be like, yo, this is cool. So I started loving other types of music. So in that time when I was fifth, sixth grade, I liked rock and I didn't really listen to much other than Eminem in terms of hip hop. And then came 2002, 2003. I started listening to everybody. I started listening to 50 Cent, Nas. I started getting back to older hip hop, which was Wu Tang, Biggie, Tupac. And I just got really influenced.
What did you like about those artists? So you said Eminem because you like the funniness
Yeah.
to him. Like what is it about those artists or the
Uh,
songs?
um. So so when I first heard M, it was just all funny stuff, and then he came out with this song called "The Way I Am," and I'm like, oh, he's actually a serious artist too. So in 2002, um, I purchased I think it was 2002, if I'm not mistaken. My first album that I ever purchased with my own saved up money was the Eminem Show, and then it kind of opened up um my ears to like his more serious side, and then it was very relatable, you know, like not in a way where he's like, you know, he hates his mom or he hates his baby mama, but like it just kind of made me realize, oh, this guy's an actual human, you know, like he struggles, he's angry. And then I listened to other hip hop and I listened for those relevant moments where like Nas would talk about um struggles in his hood, or 50 Cent talking about him getting shot, or Jay-Z when he's selling drugs. I couldn't relate it to my life, a lot of things, but it made me see them as real people other than artists, you know?
Yeah, it seems like realist seems like the ongoing theme in your life, huh? Just
Yes. Oh my gosh, thank you. Yeah,
yeah.
I try to keep it real, I guess, with everything. Like there's one point where me and my friends owned up to our name, to kind of like, like, let's not bullshit anybody, or let's not lie to ourselves about who we are. We have to keep it real at all times. Don't lie to your girl, like we don't lie to your mom, don't lie to your parents, don't but mostly don't lie to yourselves, because when you lie about yourself, you forget who you are, you forget your past, you forget who who helped you in life, everything. So we made ourselves learn to love our true self.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Of
Um,
course, yeah.
yeah, it seems like you can learn a lot from just like listening to different artists, and seems like you've also applied it to your own life too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Um, okay. So, other than music, were there other things that you and your friends bonded over? Were there certain fashion trends at the time, like that you all would get into?
Yeah, in the early 2000s, everybody dressed baggy. Everybody dressed like, they had Echo, they had South Pole, they had Rockaware, they have a lot of, like, Nike, and still Adidas and all that stuff. So in middle school, that's when it got a little more serious. Or I mean, sorry, in high school, that's when I was actually asking my parents, like, can we actually go to these stores to get these things, and they'd take us, because they would have better paying jobs, they would have better, like, pays from their jobs back then. So we'd be like, yeah, let's go. And then I remember junior oh no, sorry, sophomore year, I got myself a job at the Popeyes on Dillingham. That's my first job ever. Shout out Popeyes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my first job ever. I was it was the worst job. I was a chicken defroster. So what I would do is that all day I would just take frozen balls of chicken, and I would just be taking them apart in cold water all day, and it would be so like painstakingly terrible for my hands, and for it just I lasted for like a good, what, 3 months over there. But I having that job, it provided me like money to go to the mall with my friends, dress certain ways, dress better, or like, buy food for myself without asking my parents money. So yeah.
Yeah. So you said that I do remember like that era of like, baggy pants and Echo. Um, like why were you okay, what would you dress up as? Like did you wear Echo and all that stuff too, or
No, I
what
actually
was your
was.
style?
Oh man, I forgot to say, like, one of the. So I'll go back just a little. Like, one of the other things that we used to bond over too was skateboarding. So my friends and I would skateboard. So the fashion was, so going back to fashion, we would actually dress up more so on the skater style. Like, yes, we would actually dress up like Nelly sometimes, like baggy shirt, or baggy pants, Air Force Ones or whatever. But most times, like when we first got into high school, we would be looked at as skaters, because we would dress as like little tighter jeans. We'd have big DC shoes. Our my hair was like ugly, spiky, but that was the style. That was my style back then. And then my friends would be different as well. Like they'd be wearing like baggy clothes. They would look like basketball stars in the 2000s. But yeah, it was a mix. It was a real mix of things.
Ah, okay, so because you even brought this up, so the spiky hair, where's that from? Because I don't know if Nelly had spiky hair.
No, it wasn't Nelly. I remember I had spiky hair. Like, I don't know if you know the band Sum 41, but there was their lead singer had like, man, if I could find my picture, but like, their lead singer had like real spiky hair. Like, it wasn't meant to be spiky, but he would spike it up, And I remember I made my hair like that for like the first couple months of freshman year in high school. And it was when I look back at it now, and when I look at pictures, I'm like, bro, that's so ugly. Like it was so dumb. Because I remember too, I would tell my parents, can we go to I don't know if you ever seen that store, but there was a store next to Foodland called Price Busters. And I
Yes. Oh my
remember yeah, and I remember Price Busters had like the really strong hair gel that I could use to make my hair spike up like that. And that's how I went to school. My freshman year picture, I had that hair. It was so ugly, man.
oh my gosh. No, it's that's just so funny because at the time you probably thought it was cool, but um well, what attracted you to the hairstyle, to dressing up that way? Like why did you do it?
Um, so so back then I wasn't really so all the popular guys would be dressed up as hip hop, like Nelly, 50 Cent. They would be dressed like that. So those are the popular guys. I didn't consider myself popular, but I was friends with everybody. So I dressed like that because it kind of was that was my budget, basically. Like if I could, I would have gotten clothes like them, to get more accepted. Because to be honest, everybody wants to get accepted their first year in high school. You know what I mean? So, but then I couldn't afford anything at that time, so I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna dress as I am. Like I skate, I ride bicycles, so I'll just dress as like one of these guys, like basically punk rock.
All right, so it's kind of like budget. I think I understand what you mean. Like I always felt
Yeah,
like it's a little bit cheaper to buy like Converse than
yeah,
like yeah, than like Nike and stuff. Yeah, I never had Nike back at in high school because I was like I cannot afford that. See, my parents would be okay with like buying like Converse. It's just a little bit more cheaper. So
yes, yeah. I remember going to Savers. I remember I was a freshman in high school, and I remember I went to Savers with my mom this one time, and then I got these Nike shoes. They were very nice, and I didn't know what they were, but they were very nice. And I remember I took them to school, and my PE teacher, Mr. Jeffries, rest in peace, he was like, "Oh, I like those Jordans. I like those Jordans you got on, Franz." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you." And that's the first time I ever like knew what a Jordan shoe was, because I bought them from Savers, and I didn't tell him I bought them from Savers, but like I was like, "Oh, thank you." But yeah,
uh, no, that's awesome. So you did a lot of like punk for your style.
yeah, basically.
Yeah. What else? Let's see. Um, I like looking at your gauges too, but well, that was like a thing that became more popular in high school, or was it later?
So yeah, kind of. So I got an earring. I only had my left ear, like just a regular earring. I got it pierced when I was a sophomore in high school, and then in my senior year, um, I I pierced no junior year I pierced them both, and in a senior year I got these little gauges because a lot of my friends. So basically, back then there was this guy, I forget his name, but everybody in different high schools all around Oahu knew this one guy who would go to your house and pierce you for like $50 or some shit like that. And I remember we called that guy, and we all my friends, we cut school one day, and we all went to my house because my parents were working. We all went to my house, and that guy pierced all of us. Like, I remember I still have this hole right here. I got this pierced, I got my tongue pierced, and I got these pierced. And then all of us would start getting into that, like, into that phase where we would just get piercings all over. And then when I got out of high school, I started making these little bigger. My brother's one is actually way huge, but and and other people has theirs huge, but I think this is my perfect size.
I see. So, like having the piercings and stuff, like how did it make you feel when you and your all your friends got like piercings all at the same time?
Oh man, we felt cool because sometimes we would feel like, oh, nobody's daring enough to get it pierced here. Like we'd get it. I got my tongue pierced. It was terrible, like because I couldn't eat for a whole week. Um, but like we felt great. We felt cool, you know. Like we'd go to school, like, oh man, you guys, what, you got your lip pierced? Oh, my friend had his eyebrow pierced. We're like, yeah, man. Like we think we're badasses, but everybody does it now.
Yeah, it seems like you all have like all these different activities you bonded over.
Oh yeah.
Just because I know you're an artist and you've been rapping since high school, um, yeah, like how did you went from like just listening to actually making your own music?
Oh man, I love that question because sort of so the first time I remember so when I listened to music, so when you used to buy CDs back then, so when I first bought Eminem CD, he would have he would have a like his cover was actually like a booklet, and it was all his lyrics. And I remember I would read it along while the song was playing, and I was like, wait a second, this is kind of easy, you know, like it's just poems, but you're going with a beat. So I remember I started doing my own, and the first thing I ever recorded, which I kept to myself, was this over 50 cents Wangsta beat, and I was just rapping just whatever, you know. And I was like, you know what, this is pretty easy. So there's this one time, me and my friends, we went to my house and we are like, hey, let's rap for fun. And I remember I made a song called the Darwin Diss, and it was from my old friend Darwin, which I'm cool with now. He left us to go to a different crew, and I was dissing him in this whole song, and it was just a funny song. And my friends were like, yo, this is actually kind of easy and fun. So we made a song called Welcome to Kalihi. And it went around, and like during that time, I don't know how it spread around. Back then it was just CDs. Like we didn't have MySpace yet. Um we had like Asian Avenue or whatever, but like back then it was just people would pass around CDs, and then people would be like, hey, you're one of the guys that made Welcome to Kalihi, or so, like, yeah. And I remember I dissed Principal Payne, who was the principal at that time, because I got kicked out of school because of a fight. So I remember I dissed her because she was very unfair to me, and people thought it was so funny. So to cut it short, we made songs. I started rapping because I wanted to make fun of people I didn't like. So it was all just for jokes, and then it it later turned into like, I'm just going to start making serious music, and then yeah, so it just that's how it came.
Wow, I and this is like before hometown?
This is way before hometown. So hometown, I was already a little better at writing music. This was like probably like, let's see, hometown came on probably like 8 years before hometown. Um, yeah, like around eight, like hometown. I made hometown like when I was already like I was 22 when I made hometown, and I'm like 35 now. So hometown was like I made hometown because I was leaving Hawaii. Yeah. And I clearly remember where I wrote it too. I remember I wrote it at, there was a bus stop near, Mayor Wright's housing, and I was waiting for the bus to meet up with my wife. But while I was waiting for the bus, I was writing hometown.
Wow, that's really awesome. Oh gosh, I do have questions for that, but I did want to ask about like Principal Payne. I actually didn't know
Yeah.
you got kicked out of school. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, what happened? Like, what was
Okay.
that about?
So basically, in when I was a junior in high school, this is like I said before, we got into a lot of fights, and then there was this huge like rumble in school with me and my friends against like three different crews. Um, and majority of the people in these different crews that we are fighting, um, they were like targeting us, so we were just tired of it. So we just fought. It was a huge rumble. Cops were involved, and then we got taken into the office. And I remember the police called my parents. My parents came, and I remember Miss Payne served them this letter, which basically expelled me from Frankton High School. Me and my friends, like they told us, you guys can't go to school here anymore. Mind you, we didn't start the fights. We were actually pushed to fight back. Came to find out later, it was just me and my friends that got kicked out of school. And these people that pushed us to fight, they were still in school, and we were wondering why. And we figured out a lot of these people that we were fighting were football players, Farrington football players. So we're like, dang, makes sense now. They're not gonna kick out star football players. They're gonna kick out these guys that don't mean anything to the school. So I got so angry at her. Like, I remember I wrote her a letter, um, because I didn't want to get kicked out of school. Felt bad for my parents. I remember I wrote her a letter because I wanted to say, like, please give us another chance. Me and my brother, I mean, give us another chance. Let us finish school. I have one more year left. I didn't get nothing from that letter. So I actually, so from junior year, I didn't go to school. Um, I didn't go to school at all. So because of that, I was so pissed at Miss Payne, and I dissed her in Welcome to Kalihi and whatever. But the reason why I have a high school diploma is because in 2008, so I was supposed to graduate 2006. So for a good year and a half, I didn't go to school. In 2008, I started dating my wife, and then she was like, "I need you to get your high school diploma, or we're not gonna continue this relationship." So I was like, you know what? Okay. I went to McKinley, and they had this program. It wasn't a GED program. It was an actual high school program where you take two tests and you have to ace them. And this goes back, and there's a certain amount of people that took it because it was a very hard test. And this is why I always tell this is why people know that I'm smart, because I aced it first try, and I got an actual high school diploma. And right after that, I actually went to college. Like, I went to college for a good year, and then I dropped out of college. But yeah, that's the story of why I hate Miss Payne.
Wow. Okay. I've always wanted to ask that because when I listened to your album and I heard like, oh, F you, Miss Payne, I was like, what happened?
Yeah,
Ah,
that
that's
it was just very unfair, and it put my parents through a lot of like not like it was kind of like a depression state for them, because like going back to the way beginning of our interview, like they had expectations for me, like, so me dropping out of school, um it felt like I was done. I failed. So I just started working, and then they really hoped for me to graduate, because nobody in our family made it to college, like, um in America, like in our little family, no one's ever made it past high school yet. So I was actually the first from my family to finish high school in America.
wow. That's that's really interesting and a lot. And I on a personal note, it sucks that like Miss Payne couldn't even like hear you out because you wrote a letter. Like who takes
Yes,
the
I
time
wrote
to
a.
write a letter?
So it's crazy because in when I was a freshman, I was selected. There was 12 people selected in high school in Farrington by Mayor Mufi Hanneman, because we were on top of our class. We had like a high GPA. So he selected 12 people to have this program where we would just go on like really cool field trips. We went scuba diving, we went to Kualoa Ranch and rode horses. And it was all funded by Mayor Mufi Hanneman at that time, because we were very smart. And I remember writing that to Miss Payne, like, I'm one of these kids that has a high GPA, and you're really gonna expel me over these football players? No offense, like, I'm very smart. So I really took it. I really like felt so offended at that time. I mean, I don't hate her now, like, because everything happens for a reason. You know what I mean? So I appreciate the struggle, but back then it was such like a gloomy time when I think about it.
So was it okay? Like in Farrington High School, the school setting, was it only like Miss Payne who gave you that hard time? Was it like other people, if not your friends, then like
like teachers and
Yeah,
stuff.
teachers and
No, I actually loved my teachers and even the security there. Like I loved everybody else. Like they were very cool. Um, it was I remember Miss Payne was fairly new when I turned junior. She was fairly new. I forget who the principal was before her, but she was fairly new, and she had this thing where she had to be strict because she was she wanted to kind of straighten out the school a bit. So when that happened, I felt like okay, she did that to kind of like erase all the gang stuff. But it really like it was very unfair because she didn't look at both sides, you know. But other than that, everybody else was like very understanding. Like I remember picking up my friends. Well, I was already kicked out of school. I picked up my friends and I would say what's up to the security guards, you know, like, hey, what's up, man? Like, oh, what school you go to now? I was like, I don't go to school at all. So yeah, there was nobody else that gave me a hard time. It was just her.
I see. Um, gosh, so it was like you and your friends. So were some of your friends still in school, and then you all like
Yes, there was a handful that were still in school, and that made it very hard for them because there was a bunch of us that got kicked out, and there's a little bit of them that had to stay in. So there was that sense of danger, you know, like because not, the whole crew wasn't there anymore. So there would be so many times that they would cut school and they would go to my house. Like my house was like the hub. Like everybody would cut school if they felt like there's gonna be trouble that day. They would go to my school. I mean, they would go to my house to cut, and that actually was very it wasn't a good thing because their grades went down. They had family problems at home because they were cutting school, you know, and this goes back to saying like it really wasn't our fault that we fought back, and then it wasn't our fault either that we got kicked out of school, and now we have to like defend ourselves. So yeah, it really made it tough. It was I
right.
remember this vividly. It was 2005 to 2006. That whole 2 years was rough.
Hmm. Wait, was a fight on campus too?
Yes,
Or
it was in the morning. It was like it was crazy. It was like I think it was before first period. It just like my friend was just pushed to a corner and all of us was like, you know what, let's enough of this already. Let's fight back. So we just fought back and it was just a crazy rumble.
I think I might have remembered that because I came into high school that time.
Yeah, see?
Yeah, but no, that's wild. Let me see. So, okay, going back to fighting back, did you feel like you and your friends were like being bullied a lot?
Not really bullied, but like they just kept pushing us to want to fight in school. Cause if it was other places, like yeah, we'd do it. Like, you know, let's scrap. Let's go to mini park. We'd scrap at mini park, we'd scrap at Kalakau Field. Um, we just didn't want to do it in school because we knew the repercussions of doing that. So when they kept pushing us, you know, like let's you know what, let's scrap in school then, let's do it. So we just did it.
I see. I see. Um, gosh, no, it seems like you and your friends went through a lot of shit together.
A lot. There's a lot. And then nobody knew we were always painted as kind of like the troublemakers. But no, we never started trouble. We never once initiated a fight where it's like it was uncalled for. We never once like, and I say that on my kids. Like no, like I even tell my kids that now. Like you know, growing up, I've never started a fight. It was always me finishing problems. You know, like so. I told my son that like. Because my son boxes now, like he trains for boxing. I told him like, don't ever use this. Don't ever use what you learn to start fighting. It's called self-defense. Defense means you're protecting yourself. So you only fight back if you feel like you're being threatened. You know?
Oh, those are awesome lessons. Um,
Yeah.
going off of all this, because you talked about how your house was the hub for people. Um, can you talk to me about like, I guess, places of safety and belonging? For like, what were those places like? Like the kinds of spaces that you built with them. Like, where were they? What was they like? What were they like?
So my house, so in high school I already moved out of my childhood street, which was Kahanu Street. And I was living still in Kalihi. I was in Kalani Street. I moved when I was in high school. So that would be kind of like the safety zone during school time. After school, we would actually still meet in Kahanu. And our enemies knew not to go into Kahanu because we were strong there, you know. We had like we had everybody in the whole neighborhood on our side. So they wouldn't come to Kahanu. Same thing like we wouldn't go into KPT, you know what I mean? We wouldn't go into Mayor Rights. So Kahanu Street was kind of like our hangout spot still in high school. Even after high school, we hung out there because a few of our friends still lived there. So we'd hang out there and they would know that that was the place where we can just kick back. We didn't need to worry about trouble or anything like that.
Yeah, that's really cool. And then you know, when you would just like hang out and stuff, like would you just like eat together or like what would you
Yeah.
do?
When they do cut school and they go to my house, um we would just go on the internet, watch movies, and eat. And then when school was done, everybody went home because they had to pretend they went to school, you know. So, but when we hung out at Kahanu Street, we would just do the same thing. We'd play basketball. Like somebody would bring out their basketball hoop, and we'd play basketball in the middle of the street. We would just hang out and wait for the monopool van, and we would just eat from there. Yeah, it was just we were like kids still, like little kids. Kahanu made us feel that way, like just going there. And it's crazy too, because in high school we stayed away from going to spots where we could potentially get into a fight, like Mini Park, Kalakaua, because a lot of our enemies would be around that area. So we would just stay in Kahanu.
Wow. Um, gosh, okay. You gotta paint me the picture how it was like before. Like how did you feel just like walking around Kalihi? What did you always feel safe or like were there times where you just had to watch your back? Like as a
Oh
Filipino
man.
man, like I don't know what that's
So
like.
so if you so so I kind of painted this picture like so I put out 3 albums. My second album is called The Realist Tape. So that tape is made to paint that this whole thing that we're talking about. So in the beginning you can hear my friend Mark Villiver. He's like a popular dancer now. He was one of us. In the beginning of the album, you can hear him talking and he'd be like, dude, when I moved to California after high school, it felt great because I didn't have to watch my back. Because back then, like we would have to do that. Like even after high school. So during high school and after high school, like shortly after high school, we'd have to watch our back everywhere we go. Because no matter if we were and even out of Kalihi, we would have to watch our back because we were so notorious that we'd have like, okay, the people might want to test us. Growing up, like even just walking to high school, like yeah, we had to take certain routes. You know what I mean? Like so we don't meet with anybody. It's not like we were scared to fight because when it came down to it, we would fight. But we just some days you just don't want to deal with anything, you know. So we took certain ways, and then after school we'd take a different way. And some days when we feel like trouble was really gonna come up, we would just cut school, and that's how it was growing up in Frankton.
Wow. Dang. It's just that sounds really intense. And I always ask this question to like, boys in Kalihi because I feel like it's just a different experience.
It is.
Yeah. So okay, so you talked about all these safe spaces. I know you mentioned your wife, and I don't know if you want to talk about it, but it seems like
Yeah,
she
yeah.
must have been a super like important safe space too.
Yes. So we met in 2007, in McKinley, but uh, she was actually like dating my friend. But the first time I saw her, I was like, good Lord, like I want her. So I was just waiting for the time for them. I wasn't planning on them to like split, but like I was like, man, I hope one day like I get a chance with her. Cause I was with another girl who was I was in a serious relationship with in high school, but she cheated on me. So there was a time in 2007 where I was just all over the place with women, you know. But in late 2007, that's when I met her. No, that's when yeah we started like being friends and stuff. And in 2008, she was the one who actually messaged me on MySpace saying, "Hey, I remember you." I was like, "Hey, what's up?" And then I asked her, "You want to hang out?" She's like, "Yeah, let's hang out." So in 2008, this is when gang stuff got really serious, where it wasn't just fights anymore. It was like guns involved and stuff. So this is when me and my friends were kind of like really like living up to our name, where like you know what, like they want to mess with us, then let's mess with them back. Like we got involved with guns and real street stuff. We I remember in 2008, the main crews in Kalihi that were very strong at that time was my crew, INR, and our rivals, Wrecking Crew. And we actually came one day and shook hands and deaded our beef. And that crew started a fight with Waipahu. Like there's a group in Waipahu called the Barcadas. And we told ourselves, you know what? F this fight, F our rivalry. Let's focus our hate on these guys. And that's when a lot of serious stuff came along. The reason why my wife is so important, the reason why my wife is so important to me. Hold on one second. Are you there? Yeah. So the reason why my wife is so important to me, there was a time where we were kind of arguing in 2008, um and we wasn't talking for like that day, and I was mad at her, and my friends were like, I was just hanging out with me and my these other guys. They're like my close friends, so they're part of my crew too. But like so we were hanging out, and my friend gets a call and said, "Oh, one of the Barcata guys are here. We can get them right now." And then we're like, "Okay, let's do it. Let's hit them up." Um, while we were getting ready, getting our things, or getting all our bad tools ready, I get a call from my wife. She hasn't called all day. Like, I get a call from her, and I answer. I was like, "Yeah, what?" And she said, "I know you're still out late, and I know you're gonna do some stupid shit. If you don't come to my house right now, we're done." And I really thought about it. I was like, man, because I really loved her. So I was like, sorry boys, you guys gotta do this on your own. I gotta go back to her. And they're like, we get them, we get them, we get them. I went to her house. We made up. Um, I fell asleep. The next day, on the news, I see a shooting on the highway, on the freeway, and it was my friends, and they shot the guy. They shot one of our enemies in on a high speed chase. I was supposed to be in there, so I looked at my wife, and I'm like, oh my god, like like I think God sent you to for my life, like. And I didn't tell her the realization until like later on in life, but I feel like that like she was really meant to be in my life because of that situation. If my mom prayed for an angel to come protect me, I think it's my wife. You know what I mean? So
Wow, it's a really beautiful story, and good on her for being like, I'm gonna set this straight and tell you, like,
yes, she
um,
did. She didn't know what was gonna happen, but she knew, like, she had a feeling that something bad was gonna happen. And she said, "You better come to me right now, or we're done." And boom, like that. Life is, rest is history.
Did that person die, or was that person badly injured?
No, he was just badly injured. And then yeah, he was bad. He was just badly injured. Thank God he didn't die. But yeah, it was just a stupid situation, you know. I'm glad that nobody was killed because that would have been crazy. But my friends that did that stuff, they're actually in prison right now, facing 30 years.
Wow, you could have
Yeah,
been part of
could have
that
been me.
then.
Exactly. I wouldn't have my kids. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be with my wife at all. So I'm very grateful.
Dang. So wow, it's just so interesting how all this happened and there was that shift to like oh we gotta since we're from Kalihi, it's like Kalihi versus Waipahu. That's where the Barcadas are from, right?
Yeah, the Brakadas are from Waipahu. So that was a big rivalry that brewed in 2007, 2008 that kind of carried on for a couple more years. It was a huge rivalry against Waipahu and Kalihi. That's why Hometown is such an interesting song now,
Yeah,
you know?
well, I mean that I was gonna ask about that too, because like let me see what am I trying to say? Well, for hometown, you know, what was it that drove that kind of anger and hate towards them? Is it just the whole like old local thing, like oh, I have to protect my city, or what was it?
Yeah, it was that as well as it was just gang rivalry stuff, but mostly it was at that time it really was a hatred against a city. It's kind of stupid because we're in small island, we're basically all like connected, you know. So but back then we really did not like Waipahu guys. Like we would go to Per Ridge and we'd notice somebody, oh, this guy's from Waipahu, and then, you know, we'd keep an eye on them. Nowadays is like it's so fucking stupid. You know, why do we have territorial fights when we could see each other at a family gathering? You know what I mean? Like a lot of the Barcata guys, they're related. They were actually related to some guys that I know. So yeah, man, it was just dumb.
Oh, that is really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, tell me about hometown because I know there was also some kind of rivalry too, right? Because Waipahu made their own or something.
Yeah. So I remember when I left to Vegas, I made so a month. So I already moved to Vegas and I already wrote the song Hometown. And I remember a month after I recorded it, I was already in Vegas and I released the video um on YouTube and it blew up. Like everybody loved it. And because it was a dedication to Kalihi. So um and I remember somebody directed me to a video that was made after. It was just a video with like a picture, but the song was the same beat. It was Hometown, but it was talking about Waipahu. There was no like anger at all or nothing directed to each other for each song. So the um but when you look at the comments, people in Kalihi would be like, I mean the people in my video would be like, oh, the Waipahu one is better. F Kalihi, F Waipahu. And then when you look at the Waipahu one, Kalihi people would be like, nah, this song sucks. Kalihi's one better. And then I remember people would say things where like, oh, they have they should battle or like they should diss each other. So it would be like me versus um uh Ken, who made the Waipahu version. And they would be like, they would say like, yeah, like I bet you uh they can but they should scrap. They would say stuff like that. Oh, you guys should scrap. And I remember I was like, bruh. And I remember I somebody gave me an idea thinking that, see, they were saying like, oh, the guy who made the White Power version hated me and they wanted to diss me. So I was like, man, what the hell? So I remember I threw I made a song and I was like, bro, if you guys want to scrap, let's scrap. Da, da, da. And I remember Ken messaged me on Facebook. I believe it was Facebook. And he was like, hey, what's up, man? I'm Ken. I'm the guy who made Waipahu, hometown. I go, did you want to fight? Like, I keep hearing that stuff that you want to fight. Then I was like, dude, I don't even know you. Like, I was like, I don't even know you, bro. Like, I, if I knew you and I knew that you wanted to fight, then yeah, let's fight. But like, why? And he was like, yeah, I don't know why we would fight about this. And then from then on, we added each other on Facebook, we added each other on Instagram, we became friends online. And then it was just 2 years ago when we actually met each other in person because he came to one of my shows. And Ken is like he's like, I consider him one of my best friends now. And what's funny was that was like, dude, let's combine hometown and just shake everybody up. So we thought we made that idea, and that it's always such a cool story to tell because knowing that fact that Kalihi and Waipahu had tension before, but in this song we're actually together, and when you really listen to it, we're not talking about the hood, we're not talking about like gangs and stuff. We're actually just making a song about the cities that we love, and bro, Ken is like the nicest guy ever. So I'm like, bro, I can't even see myself fighting you. And yeah, we're just joke around about that all the time.
Wow, that's so awesome that you all just I guess like you both just like reached out to each other and be like, yeah, I don't know why people want us to fight, and then it's great that you met each other like 2 years ago in your adulthood and you're like, yeah, let's do this because I think I think when I saw that song being released, I was like, oh, this is really badass. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's the story behind it. If people knew or if people were there who grew up to both hometowns, when we did a show in July, just recently, oh, you came to the show. Yeah, so dude, there was multiple people that came up to us and they're like, I grew up to your guys' hometowns. Like one guy came up to me like, dude, I grew up to hometown Kalihi, and then his girlfriend actually grew up to hometown Waipahu. So we're like, and they were like, it's so amazing that you guys actually made it to a whole one song. And we're like, yes, like that was the point, united to unite things.
No, that's really cool. That's really awesome. I saw the video too. I was like, oh, look at this. This is like, so dope because you're really getting people together to be like, yeah, we got to defend and love all our places on Oahu.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Dang. Um, what else? Okay, so I wanted to ask, with all this being said, what does it mean for you to be from Kalihi?
Um, it means that I came up from a struggle, but I came up not really. I didn't feel the struggle. Like I felt more the togetherness. Like when I think about home, when I think about Kalihi, I don't think about, like, of course there's very bad moments, but I think more so about, when I think about Kalihi, I think about my parents. Um, it they made life, we were struggling, but they made life like happy. They made us happy no matter what our situation was. They put us in places where it set us up for life. Like they gave me lifelong friends because we moved to Kahanu. Um, they gave me an understanding to and an understanding and an appreciation for growing up at a place like Kalihi, like the ghetto, like the hood. Like, and I'm proud of that. Like when they say like, oh, you're from Kalihi, I was like, yes, I am. Like it's a place full of 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 hardship, but of culture and community. Like, and if you grew up in Kalihi, you would know what I'm talking about. Like it's such a beautiful thing to be, like, and I'll never be ashamed of it ever.
No, that's amazing. Like it's so cool it's cool that you're really thinking about family. You're thinking about like your friends and all the people that tied you to this place.
Yeah,
So
I do. Like that's all I think of. Like before any of the problems, when you mention Kali, I think of my childhood. That's it. Like people can paint whatever picture they want. They can hear music. They can hear all the bad stuff about it, all the news coverage, but like I grew up in all of that, but I still appreciate it. You know what I mean?
okay. Um, I know you touched on this point a couple times, but what are key lessons from your childhood that you take away with you today? Like, now that you're older, you're in Vegas.
Um, I I I think for the most part, to I think resilience would be the word because um that's what my parents. I did not know of this word in when I was young, but like when you grow up, you learn words, you understand things, and resilient was really what painted my a picture in my head of my parents. Like they defined that word. Like they did not fold under pressure. They stayed strong. They kept us fed. They kept us sheltered. Not once were we homeless. Um, Kalihi. When I think about Kalihi, I think about resilience. So I take that with me today, and I make sure my kids understand that like even in life, even in life, no matter how hard it is, you have it. Like you can get through it. If I went through this, you can get through it if you just appreciate what you have right now. Like Kalihi was such a struggle, but if I appreciate it so much because it's actually made me a better person because of that struggle. So that's what I take, like the struggle and the resilience, and that's what Kalihi is to me.
Yeah. And then, has it, I guess like now that you're in Vegas too, like I guess like the way that you grew up in Kalihi, does it impact the way that you interact with others in Vegas today? Um, or just like even other locals or like non-locals from here?
Um, there's times where when I'm over here, like let's say like when I'm meeting with somebody important, like I don't show them my Kalihi side. Like there's no such thing as a Kalihi side. Like I don't I just show them that I'm a good person. And then when they ask where you're from, I tell them I'm from Kalihi, and they see it like, okay, Kalihi people are good people. This guy's a cool guy. So that's what I want to show them. No matter if Kalihi was is such painted as a rough place back then, um, they actually produce some of the greatest people. So that's what I want to be. Like I told my friends the other day, I was like, if I ever die early, like unfortunately, like God forbid, I I want them to paint a picture of me on top of that wave, and on Kalihi, like that big wall. There's a painting of a wave. I told them, man, I hope they paint a mural of me, man, because I love that city. Like that's how I want it to be. Like um when I speak to other locals here, I never shy away. Like, I'm from Kalihi. They're like, "Oh, that's cool, man. That's cool." And it's never a thing anymore. It's like, "Oh, dude, I'm from Waianae." Like, "Oh, that's cool, bro." Yeah, it's never anything anymore. It's just like everybody here. If you're from Hawaii, you're just from Hawaii. Like nobody really asks, like, "Oh, you remember this? Like, you remember that?" Like, no, we're just from Hawaii. We're all Ninth Islanders now.
Okay, so interesting. Yeah. Yeah, that's I haven't even been to Vegas yet, but I know there's so many people that are up there. So it's it's really
Yes.
interesting. Okay. So do you think that you and your family achieved the American dream? I know that's that's like a huge shift, but
Oh no, no, that's cool.
yeah.
At the moment, we live okay. Like, but I feel like I still have a lot of goals to accomplish, but for the most part, I feel like my parents are happy for us. Like I feel like they they feel that we reached the American dream, to live a normal, decent life, um, to not be struggling financially. And yeah, so in their eyes, yes, I think we reached the American dream. But to me, like I feel like I still want more for my kids. Like I'm happy now. Like don't misunderstand that. Like I love how we're living now. We're living very comfortable, simple life, nothing crazy, nothing glamorous, but we're way better from when we first moved to Vegas. So it really depends on how people see the American dream. I feel like the American dream is like when you reach your goals, when you reach your dreams. But for me, like family wise, yes, like I'm happy that my we're doing okay. I'm able to provide for my family in the Philippines as well. So yeah, I feel great.
Oh man. Wait, so do you also like have to provide, do you still have family here in Hawaii?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
It's just my brother. He actually migrated to Hawaii from Davao in 2010. So, but he has a good job there now. I don't provide for them. I don't necessarily mean that I'm providing for my family in the
Oh,
Philippines. I'm actually, yeah, we actually just send them money like once or twice a
yeah.
month, just to give them money. And it's
Yeah.
just to my mom, and mainly because my dad isn't mobile anymore. He had a stroke like a couple years ago, so he's bedridden. So for his caregiving and all his medicines, we give him money. But I'm happy that I'm able to do that at least.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I remember you had written something about your parents moving back to Davao. So
Yes, yeah, they did move back to Davao.
okay. So you know how like you rep Kalihi, this place. Okay, do you ever see yourself living back here?
Um, Truthfully, I would purchase a place there. Let me see, like I can't see myself living like fully living there. I can see myself, my family having a house there where we can visit every year, and actually live in, or if I could have it rented out and stuff like that. But it's not that I don't want to go back. It's just because over here there's just so many things, so many opportunities that that I could partake in to reach certain goals of mine. Um, that's one of the reasons why we moved out of Hawaii is because it was so like everything's just a little closed in. You're just in an island. Um, but I would actually, well, that's actually one of my goals to actually own a house on the island, whether it be Kalihi or Aiea or Hawaii Kai. But I always go back to Kalihi, man. Like every year, like when we go back to visit Hawaii, I want to go to Kalihi. Like I want to eat at Richie's. I want to see I have my son there still who lives in Kalihi from my ex. So I see him every time, and it always feels like I haven't left.
I see. Yeah, no, I asked this question just because like, there's so many people from Hawaii moving away, yeah. Um,
Yeah, true.
yeah. And then, there are some people who are like, oh, Kali will always be home, but XYZ, they tell me like things like, oh, it's just expensive, but I guess like let me see. Do you feel like it's just that home is like for you in Vegas right now that you don't want to really like go back like permanently to like Hawaii in
Um,
general?
no, so one day, like I always feel like I have this calling where I have to kind of like give back to um give back to the place I grew up at. Um, like how Manny Pacquiao is like he's such a servant to his country. I kind of want to do that with with Kalihi, and not just Kalihi, you know, like Hawaii in general, because I consider Hawaii home. Like Vegas is my second home. Like I love Las Vegas. Like I made such a good batch of friends here, but Hawaii will always be home to me. Like Kalihi will always be home to me. I don't ever like um I'm not gonna say like I would move back like in an instant, but like I want where I can be comfortable moving back and forth. Like I want to be like wealthy enough to go back to Kalihi anytime. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's I think people just move. It is a little expensive right now in Hawaii, and there's a lot of people moving because of that. But I don't think they intend to leave because they don't like Hawaii anymore. I think they're kind of like economically pushed out. You know?
Oh yeah. No, this is really helpful to hear about just because like, there's the whole yeah, especially with Tongi, right? People are saying like, oh, priced out of paradise and all that stuff. But I
Oh,
think hearing from all these different people, it's like, oh, people still have heart for this place. They want to still give back and they come home when they can.
oh
So
yeah. You have to, you know, like I feel like you have to. Like there was a point in time where I was angry at where I'm from because like the Miss Payne thing. Like I hated that point of my life. But then now when I'm such a grown ass guy, like I appreciate it because it's given me this, it's given me my family. So no matter what the circumstances were, um I grew up appreciating it, and I feel like going back to what I'm saying, like because of the resilience that it gave me, I feel like I have to give back. You know what I mean? So
mm,
it's just not right to abandon something that made you. I feel.
mm. um okay, if there were any changes that you would like to see in Hawaii, like what are some things that you would want to see?
Um, I would like to see a lot more locals and like mainly Hawaiians or like people that even like just Filipinos. Like I want us to kind of own more things, you know, like
Mm.
my friend Osna, he posted something on Facebook which really like touched me. He said like there's a lot of things in Hawaii that we think is ours, but it's actually owned by people in the mainland or rich people. So that's one thing I would really like people in Hawaii to push, you know, like I know I already moved out of there, but I feel like if you could make it in Hawaii, own a lot of businesses there, provide for people there, then I think that's the change I would really like to see because people people grow up, they go to high school, they leave for college, and they don't come back to Hawaii anymore. They don't own anything in Hawaii anymore. So I feel like that's one thing we should be pushing is to actually own things so that people don't, you know, like when I went back to Kalihi, I think it was last year when I went back home, and I when you exit the H1 to Dillingham, and there's this huge like tower. It looks like a I think that's where the train goes or whatever.
Oh
But it
yeah,
looks
yeah.
scary. It looks very like what the hell is this? It looks like a gateway to like something dangerous. It didn't. It looked very industrial.
Mm.
I remember passing by. There's the cow is not there anymore. You know the Meta Gold cow.
Oh, I forgot about that cow. What the heck?
Yeah, like they took it away. So I'm like, man, like if we owned more of the properties here, they wouldn't have any right to touch our stuff. You know what I mean? Like I feel like we could make the community look more cultural rather than industrial, if that makes any sense, you know? Because it looks like right now like a just a pathway for the train, you know?
Yeah, like so like I don't know if you noticed, but I muted a couple times because Dillingham they're tearing up right now, and I'm just like,
Oh
what?
yeah,
It's coming through
yeah.
here this way, so uh,
That's crazy. See,
yeah.
that's the thing, man. Yeah, that's the only thing. That's one of the things I'd really like for us to like consider as a community there. not just Filipinos, but everybody, man. Like everybody that grew up in Hawaii, I feel like we should be pushing to own things over there so that they they can't fucking grab anything that they want anymore, you know?
Yeah, man. Like I think I mean like I think there's like conversations happening right now with like Lahaina. Well, you probably like yeah, didn't you do like some kind of concert for Maui Fire like Lahaina recently?
Oh yeah, so we did a song. We did Hometown, but it was a more somber version.
Mm.
It was for a show, a really small show, but we're doing one actually this Sunday in so downtown Las Vegas is holding this thing called Maui Strong. It's like a concert with Hawaii artists or like artists that are connected to Hawaii so to benefit for the tragedy in Maui. So we're very proud that we're part of that, me and my .WAV crew. Um and then we're actually there's another one that's coming up that's being held by actual Hawaiians here, and we're part of that show as well. So we're glad to kind of like contribute what we can, you know.
So is .wave is like with are they all like locals or just like Hawaii people and then Vegas people together?
So actually there's 8 of us, and only one is from Vegas. But yeah, so it's we're all so that except for that one person, everybody the other 7, including me, we were either we grew up in Hawaii and then we moved to um Las Vegas. So that's how we came about. It was actually that OG Creed Chameleon. He's kind of like our big brother, um, the leader of the whole crew because he's the oldest one. He kind of put it together, and it only made sense, you know. Like we're such a talented group of people, and we want to represent Hawaii perfectly. So, you know, like we just want to make quality music together.
No, I think that's amazing. Yeah, when you were sharing your .wave with me, I was like, oh my God, this is pretty cool, you know, just
Yeah.
to see that you all have like a stronghold in Vegas and still like
Yes,
supporting back and stuff. But um I have one last question, but I want
for
to
sure.
ask uh what are hopes and dreams you have for yourself, for Kalihi, and for Hawaii?
That's a great question. I still hope for my for Kalihi to not go back to. So when I go back to Kalihi now, it's like it's a little different. Um, I'm not sure what goes on there anymore, but like when I grew up in Kalihi, it was a lot of like there's a lot of togetherness, even though there was a lot of like gang rivalries and stuff. But I kind of want Kalihi to kind of have more like cultural events to kind of like celebrate the people that's in Kalihi, you know, like have like a Filipino festival and like you know all that kind of stuff. Have a Samoan festival day or whatever, you know, like just I think that would be so great because that would make Kalihi such a much beautiful place than it already is. And for Hawaii, I feel like going back to the same thing I was saying, you know, like they need to kind of um stand up against like the rich people that want to purchase basically every land that's available there. Like Hawaii wasn't even meant to be owned by anybody, you know. It was actually its own country, its own kingdom. So Hawaii should kind of like not overthrow the government, but like, you know, own more things. Like um make sure that people understand that this is an actual culture rather than like a state, a united state. And we're proud to be Americans, but at the same time, you can't forget about the Hawaiian culture, you know. And that's one thing I appreciated too is learning the Hawaiian culture. And yeah, so that's one thing. That's what I want for Hawaii. I want them to own more things so that Hawaii can stay Hawaii. And for me, I just want to succeed in life in all of my avenues that I'm good at. Like I want to be successful as an artist. Like no matter how old I'm getting, I feel like I still want to influence others to kind of like to dive into their art and continue to push their passion. Like so I still hope to one day like go back home and perform at a huge arena, and stuff like that. Like that's my hope and dream still. But most for the most part, I want my kids to be happy in life. Like I want them to look at me and say, "Wow, I'm proud that that's my dad right there." Because they're good kids, and I just want the best for them. That's what any wonderful father would wish. But that's it. Like,
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. Thank you so much just for like this whole interview and talk story.
yes, thank you. Like I'm so honored and I'm so like proud of you for doing this because um not like let's say like I'm cool with a lot of like the artists from Kalihi nowadays and there's a lot and we hold as artists we hold a lot of influence. Most times it's not really the best influence, like when we rap, yeah, we say a lot of bad stuff. So when you came to me for this, I was very open to it because it's very um it gives other people insight, like a real positive insight of Kalihi as a culture, as a community, as a actual family. So I'm very happy and I'm so thankful and I'm so honored to be a part of this for real. And I'll help you however you want
No, yeah.
with
No,
this.
thank you so much. Like, like it's been a long journey, but it's been hard. Like I've like a lot of people that I've spoken to, um, there's a lot of people who still have these like deep ties to Kalihi, and you know, we all feel it. Like it's sometimes like we want to be like attached to Kalihi. There are other times we want to push it away. But
Yes.
yeah, like it goes like it's like in waves. But I always was very curious since middle school, like, oh, what is it, this feeling that I have? Like I know I'm Filipino, but I am attached to this place. Like that's not the same like with maybe other Filipinos on the continent. They don't have that same
Yes.
kind of attachment to place. So I think that's why I wanted to talk to people who understand that. And
Yes.
like I also just feel like there are things that I'm like concerns that Osna has, or like other people in Hawaii have, just what do we do when there's like a Hawaiian kingdom, people are still fighting for it, but then there's like sometimes a divide between like immigrants and and like
Yeah.
Hawaiians. I feel like it's kind of interesting because on one hand people think, oh yeah, like all Filipinos want is like American dream and they're just like stealing land or whatever shit. Like this is like conversations I have in university setting. But I'm
Uh-huh.
like, if you really ask people, and you've always been that kind of artist that keeps it real. Like, it's
Yeah.
like, I love Hawaii, but it wasn't always paradise. And
Yes.
I think that's important because you have there's like insight that Kalihi people would know that there's reasons why it's not all perfect in paradise.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Uh, like people like our upbringing isn't the same as like people from like Hawaii Kai or
Yes. Yeah. You're very right.
yeah.
You're very right.
Yeah. So I feel like you do have like Filipinos, Micronesians. There's a lot more like Micronesians, Samoans, Hawaiians. Like what I'm interested in is like not the idea of like there is one thing about like traditional culture that we all bring to Kalihi, but
Yeah.
I also think people in Kalihi are so creative. Like you as an artist, um, you're creating this like collectivity that's not just centered on like ethnicity, but just because of place.
Yes.
Bringing everyone in, and you did it in your own organizing for the bicycling crews. So
That's
yeah,
awesome. Yeah, no, I love what you're doing because it shows a different perspective of things, like and it opens people up, like, wow, like really, like there's this type of people here and there's this type of people there, and they all grew up differently, you know. And I love that. I love that you're doing that for real.
Yeah, but I'll be sure to like keep you updated, and it might be a little while since till I post stuff because I want to get a little bit more interviews in. But
Yeah, of
um,
course.
yeah, this has been really awesome, and um, like just for clarification, like this is gonna be on Instagram. I might open a YouTube. We'll see.
You
Yeah,
should.
yeah. I was thinking
You
about that
should.
people's fuller stories on
Yeah.
there. I just haven't done it before, so that's why I'm a little hesitant. But I'd like to share this whole talk story we had for almost 3 hours.
Yeah, no, it was great. I didn't even know that it was that we went over that time. It was That's what's great about it. Like you should really start doing that. Like, think about doing like a podcast all about Kalihi. That would be so cool, to be honest. And I would
Yeah,
do it again. Like if it's in a live setting, I would gladly do it again for real.
yeah. No, that thank you. I'm gonna try to like do that. And then also like because I'm also writing a paper about this too. So I'll be sure to share all that with you because I don't want to mess up your how you're wording things, you
Yeah,
know.
no worries. Yeah, I'm not worried about anything, so you're good.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Sounds good. I'll let you know what I plan to do then with this recording.
yeah, no worries. Yeah, take your time, do whatever you need to do. So thank you so much again for having me.
Thanks, Franz. All right. So hope you have a great day.
You too, you too. And contact me if you need anything else, whatever.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.